Very good morning to you, by the way. Morning, Glory, with me, Mike Graham.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the home of common sense.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
How realistic do you think a ceasefire is this week?
There's a very good chance that we'll have a settlement, an agreement of some kind.
We basically have two countries that are...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to our Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 6. It is Wednesday the 15th of October and we are smack bang in the middle of the month. We're getting very close to Halloween and it's getting pretty scary out there, let me tell you. Never mind what's going on in Gaza, never mind what's going on with the hostages, and they're still trying to get as many of the dead hostages back as they possibly can. Hamas sort of dragging their feet on that one. They've released 4 more bodies overnight, so that's a good thing, but they still haven't released about 20 that still need to come home to the families that have been mourning them for the best part of 2 years. But I'll tell you what's scary, and that is the economy. Stupid, as some people like to say. Labour isn't working, brackets again, is the front page of the Daily Mail. Number of jobless hits a 4-year high. We face the highest inflation in the G7, according to the International Monetary Fund, and growth in wages and living standards stalls. We've also got some of the most expensive goods in the world being sold in this country. Let me tell you about some ready-to-eat meals, right? There's a new company, Charlie Bingham's company, you might have heard of it, and we're not particularly singling them out, but they've come out and said that we are going to now sell you a ready-to-eat meal which will cost you £30. £30 for one person, right? And they're saying the reason we're doing that is because it costs so much to go out to eat. Well, how about people who can't afford not only to go out to eat, they can't afford to stay in to eat? £30 for something like shepherd's pie. Absolutely unbelievable. The International Monetary Fund says that rising prices in the UK are at an all-time high. That's on the front page of The Times this morning. They're basically saying that Britons are facing the worst price rises of all the big economies in the world, right? British living standards are going to rise more slowly than almost every other major economy next year. Growth per person, which is often used as a proxy for living standards, will be only 0.5% in 2026 compared with 1.8% in the United States and 1.2% in Japan. Even the Eurozone will outpace Britain. So it's bad news all round, by the way. Meanwhile, on the migrant front, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, will today say that Britain's failure to control its borders is eroding trust in politicians and the credibility of the state. You think? Really? How long has it taken you to come up with that brilliant idea? She says the UK basically has lost control of its borders and a failure to get a hold of migration will erode trust. She wants a global response. Once again, she's proving to be just as useless. Remember when she came into the job, we were told she's going to make it work. She's absolutely no nonsense. She's very tough. She's the toughest woman you've ever seen in your life. She'll do everything to sort out the migrant crisis. Well, apparently not. She's just as useless as everybody else is. Front page of The Sun, incredible story. What a waste of money, they say. Basically, 260 million has been spent by this government on centres for deportation. Taxpayers are funding art classes, puzzle rooms and gyms for illegal migrants as they await deportation. I mean, so far we've only deported 26 people. I don't know what the big deal is. But under the terms of the agreement, £260 million contract has been given to run a removal centre at Gatwick Airport. They've even got a welfare buddy for emotional support. I could do with one of those. Maybe Theo Usherwood could do it for
I'm
me.
your welfare buddy.
I could be my welfare buddy. Very good morning to you. This is a great story in front page of The Sun. I mean, again, what an absolute and utter waste of money. People will be absolutely enraged by this. Migrants get a welfare buddy. Last night the Home Office said it was reviewing the provision of activities in the centres. But when you turn into pages 4 and 5, departure scrounge. Basically, illegal migrants awaiting deportation from Britain are getting free arts and craft classes, IT tutorials and English lessons. Hundreds of people held at 2 airport immigration removal centres also have access to board games, puzzles and library books.
Yeah.
I mean, why? Why do we have to treat these people so well? They've come here illegally. They're on the scrounge. Why do we have to give them a monopoly to play?
something human rights, but of course this goes down to this boils down to the fact that this country is seen and those on the left and the right have said it as being a soft touch. Soft touch. You can come here and you can get, as you say, you can get your English lessons, you can get your art classes, your IT.
I mean, art classes. Come on, give me a break. I mean, why did migrants need art classes?
These are people who are about to be deported, by the way.
Yeah.
These aren't people who you might. Don't shoot the messenger, but you might have gone through the system and then worked out that actually they do have a right to be in this country. No, these are people who are being deported. And I go back to the point, it's about humane treatment. But
but humane treatment is one thing, right? Humane treatment to me is not putting you in a rat-infested cell covered in sewage, okay? That would be inhumane, right? Humane treatment does not mean that you have to be given a lesson in how to paint.
No,
I think ridiculous, isn't it?
It is ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. I'm not for one moment suggesting it's not ridiculous. I think, though, that the argument from those who are providing this provision is that in providing this, all of these classes and so forth, is that they're not inmates. They haven't been convicted of a crime, therefore they're allowed out, and they have to be occupied. Well, technically, surely
they have been convicted of a crime because they've been convicted of the crime of being in this country illegally, which is why they're being deported. Because if they were in the country legally, they wouldn't be deported, would they? So technically speaking, they are actually in breach of the law.
They're in breach of the law,
right?
They haven't. I'm saying
they may not have committed a specific crime. Like they haven't. They may have done, but the point is that they are not here at Her Majesty's pleasure. They don't have to be looked after. They don't have to be given anything really. They can be given food. They can be given shelter. They can be given water.
The basics.
That's it. They don't need art classes.
No, they don't need art. They don't need art classes. They don't need any of this stuff. And of course, look, I'm playing a bit of devil's advocate here, trying to explain why on earth this would be happening. But
I don't think you should bother because at the end of the day, this is a ridiculous amount of waste of money.
Of course, it's a waste of money. But it's also,
which we haven't got any of.
But that's the point, isn't it? We're going to come on to in a minute to talk about just what a state the British economy is in right now.
Yes.
And not good. And many of your listeners will be struggling to get by. They'll be struggling to pay the bills at the end of the month, get the shopping, fill up the car, whatever it might be. And yeah, you can turn around and say, well, it's only £260 million, but that's £260 million that could be invested in youth clubs in this country or town centres in this country.
How about teaching some poor kids from some horrible council estate how to paint and maybe give them the benefit of the money that we're giving to these scumbags?
Precisely.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, and it goes down to this fairness, and we'll also come on into a minute. Page 2 in the Daily Mail about how the fact that Reform are on course to win 445 MPs.
I mean, this is absolutely devastating, right? I wrote a piece for the Telegraph yesterday.
Story's why.
I wrote a piece for the Telegraph yesterday saying basically the Conservative Party's finished.
Yeah.
Right? It's all over. Forget about, all the dancing around. Forget about the conference speeches. Forget about everybody going, oh, Kerry Badenoch said a really good thing, and she really looked very, very prime ministerial. According to this, they would win 7 seats. 7. I'm not kidding. 7. That's just enough to have 7 dwarfs to go along with, Snow White.
Who would you be?
Well, which 7 would you have?
Yeah,
I mean, the thing is, that it's for Reform on 445, Labour 70. I mean, it's an absolute, it's not just a wipeout, it's a massacre.
It's a decimation.
They're going to scoop over it. And a lot of people are now saying to me things like, I mean, most of the people commenting on the piece that I wrote yesterday were agreeing with it, saying they're absolutely dead and buried, the Tories have got no chance of coming back, they don't really have any ideas. 1 or 2 were saying things like, oh, Reform have gone too early, they're peaking too early, don't worry, there's not going to be an election for a while, the Tories will recover. But every poll just gets worse and worse and worse.
I don't think...
with every month that passes, Reform get more support.
If you look at the messaging that's coming from the Conservatives versus the messaging that's coming from Reform, indeed, if you bring into the equation, what Keir Starmer is saying or not saying, and the state of the economy, that it only points in one direction. That so much in politics doesn't just... so much of politics isn't just like the snapshot of the day, it's the direction it's heading.
Exactly.
And there's nothing in any of these papers,
no.
Nothing. Not one story, whether it's front page of The Sun, front page of The Mail, front page of, The Guardian. Even we'll come on to a story about how they're messing up the grooming scandal, right? But there's nothing in any of the papers that points to the fact that fundamentally anybody else outside of Reform is connecting with the British public or is saying anything that the British public is saying, hang on, right, you've got a point, we're going to give you airtime. And on top of that, they already feel like they've given it enough space and attention to the Conservative Party. They had 14 years of attention from the British public. They were voted in 1, 2, 3, 4 times if you go from 2010 through to 2019 and Boris Johnson's election, right? They're done. They had their go.
And they had 5 different leaders. 5 different prime ministers, all of whom were just as bad as each other.
And if you have 14 years, you can't turn around and say, oh, we didn't get a fair crack of the whip.
No.
We didn't have the majority we needed. We didn't have the space to do what we wanted. They had their go. They did all the different flavours. You had the coalition flavour with David Cameron and a bit of the Liberal Democrats and Nick Clegg. You had the full fat version supposedly with Boris Johnson that didn't really turn out to be that. You had Liz Truss. You had Rishi Sunak. They did.
Boris is now walking around, by the way, apologising for all the things he got wrong. Including net zero. He's now defending the Boris wave, claiming that he closed Britain's borders, which he absolutely didn't do. He didn't get Brexit done. Most people, when he came into this building to be interviewed by Harry Cole for the Sun, Harry Cole said, maybe Boris is the one person that can break the mould and actually come back and make the Conservatives popular again. People who listen to this show were going, no, we don't want him back. No. He's betrayed the Tory message. He's a complete traitor to the country. He ruined the country, and he's responsible for part of what we're now suffering from.
Yeah, absolutely. And he didn't, he came back. It felt to me like he was sort of reincarnated as a centrist dad.
Yeah.
He came back and it was like all of the good things that you might be willing to kind of give Boris an ear time for. Just he was reneging on all of that.
Right.
And it feels.
And he's a great performer, and yes, he's very entertaining, and yes, he's very engaging as an individual. But politically speaking, he's finished. He's dead.
Yeah,
he's dead in the water.
And Harry, I saw the interview. Lost the interview Harry did. It was a very good interview. But yes, there was a feeling that, and if you looked at a number of the polls, he was the only person who could actually save the Conservative Party. You look at that, and it felt like he was coming in. He was going to bumble his way through, and it was all against Jeremy Corbyn. It was yesterday's fight, and he could somehow charm everybody back. But people are like, no, forget it. I don't want that.
No, exactly right. And the front page, as you say, of the Daily Mail brings us onto the economy and the state of it. And Rachel Reeves, incredibly, believe it or not, we're going to be playing you a little clip of her later, saying that my figures always add up, I think is the phrase that she uses, right? But her figures do not. add up to anything other than a complete disaster. Well, they do add up. The number of jobless hits a 4-year high. That adds up. We face the highest inflation in the G7. That adds up. Growth in wages and living standards stalls. Yes, it all adds up to a complete and utter fiscal disaster and a complete and utter economic nightmare. And we are going to be facing, I say, in November, when she brings her new budget to the table on November 26th, we're going to be facing Armageddon as a country, you know, financially. Because we are going to be finished.
And people are saying it now, I have a very strong suspicion that the whole house of cards is going to come crashing down. The whole thing,
and this is where I will finally, I believe, be proved right that they will have to go to the country. They will have to ask whether or not the country still has enough confidence in a Labour government in order to go forward. Because, quite frankly, they will have there will be no confidence in them from the IMF, from the European Union, from any fiscal organisation, and they'll be done.
I think we'll probably end up. This is the way I see this finishing is with us going cap in hand, like a developing world country, to the IMF asking for a handout.
And who may well say, well, we can't really give you a handout, but I'll tell you what we can do is we can give you like a bridging loan, but under these conditions, and they will give the conditions which will be so horrendous for the people of this country that there will have to be an election. That's what I think.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. The opportunity to get this country back on an even footing. They've now had 15 months, and the way to do it is you have to cut spending at some point. Unless you are going to.
And how about cutting spending like that? I mean, £260 million. It's the front page of the Sun. What a waste of money. £260 million on, amongst other things, teaching migrants how to paint.
We spend billions on. That's 260 million. We spend, upwards of £7 billion a year on just on housing. Migrants. It is costing us a fortune.
It is, and it's not going away anytime soon either, because there's more people coming in. We spoke yesterday, I think, about 2,000 people have come in the previous 4 days to yesterday, right? So that even as they're trying to get people out of hotels, there's more coming and being put into hotels. This migrant welfare centre, removal centre, if you like, at Gatwick Airport, there's 2 of them. They can only house a few hundred people, and there's thousands coming in. So, we're already finished, we're already limit up.
Yeah, and you make a point. You make a very important point there, which is these are only centres where you deport people, and so if you have migrants running or cycling around on Deliveroo bikes, and you want to have a national crackdown on what was it called? Crackdown on national illegal workers.
Oh yeah. They did that at one hotel, didn't they?
Yeah, and you go and arrest them. You've got nowhere to put them, so you have to bail them. So they just go back out on the bike.
Right.
So we have a system where that £260 million, you need to build more. And they're not.
Which we've been saying for a long time. Build more prisons, build more detention centres, put them into army quarters, places which are disused at the moment, perhaps. You've got to put them somewhere. Can't keep putting them in hotels. It's too expensive. We're wasting too much money. We haven't played any clips today yet so far. We've got a whole bunch of them, very, very different today, because obviously the last 2 days we've been concentrating very much on what happened in Israel, what happened in Palestine, Donald Trump's incredible peace manoeuvre that he made in the last 72 hours. But here's Keir Starmer, who finally returned to Britain yesterday, believe it or not, and appeared in the House of Commons. And here's what he said.
Mr. Speaker, we've worked behind the scenes for months with the US, Arab and European nations to help deliver a ceasefire, get the hostages out, get aid in and secure a better future for Israel, Gaza and the West Bank. I am proud of our contribution. And Mr. Speaker, we are in a position to play this role precisely because of the approach this government takes. And Mr. Speaker, that does include our decision to recognise the state of Palestine.
He seems to have forgotten that only 24 hours earlier he was completely and utterly humiliated on the world stage by President Trump. Mike Huckabee, the Israel ambassador from the United States, called Bridget Phillipson delusional when she said that Britain had played a great role.
Same claim that...
so he's now claiming the same thing, even though he knows it to be a lie. So this is him lying in the House of Commons again, I'm afraid.
Well, yeah, he's he's clinging on to something that was made, a claim that was made about by Witkoff, was made about Jonathan Powell.
Yeah, that was rubbish, right?
Yeah, we know.
And somebody also pointed out to me that what they were, what could also be being done there was putting Jonathan Powell in the firing line by saying this is a guy who works very, very hard on every single international issue, like China, like Chagos, and if he's under fire for doing that, that's because he's doing it.
Yeah. Look, when this country decided to recognise the state of Palestine because Keir Starmer set these demands for a ceasefire that are completely unworkable from Benjamin Netanyahu's point of view, it was a gift to Hamas. It strengthened Hamas's position. And actually, we listened to what Trump's saying, Marco Rubio, his Secretary of State, is saying. It hampered that.
It did.
Negotiation.
We've got the Rubio. Let's have a look at what Rubio said. We've got the quote.
The talks with Hamas fell apart on the day Macron made the unilateral decision that he's going to recognize a Palestinian state. And then you have other people come forward, other countries say, well, if there's not a ceasefire by September, we're going to recognize a Palestinian state. Well, if I'm Hamas, I basically conclude, let's not do a ceasefire. Right. Because we can be rewarded and we can claim it as a victory. So those messages, while largely symbolic in their minds, actually have made it harder to get peace and harder to achieve a deal with Hamas. They feel emboldened.
There it is, right there.
Right, and it's also just worth reminding your listeners why Starmer went down that route. He went down that route because he's worried about a particular voting section of this public who will go to, who will potentially put up candidates, independent candidates, in seats around the country. They got 4 last time round. They could get as many as 50 this time round. It is a real pinch point for him electorally, and it is in the national interest to have peace in the Middle East. The British national interest to have peace in the Middle East, and he's putting his own party political, that manoeuvre that he did last month, put his own party political interests above the national interest.
But of course, it hasn't helped him. I mean, that shows you how useless he is, because not only is he so useless that he's willing to put a peace deal in danger in order just to satisfy his own bloodlust for keeping his people sweet, right? The people on the left of the party don't think he did the right thing, because they say that this peace deal isn't helpful to Palestine. They don't like it.
No,
the Corbynistas and the left-wingers are all going, oh, but this is colonisation. This is,
They don't like the fact that Tony Blair's going to be involved.
Don't like Tony Blair being involved, don't like the fact that it's going to be, an imposition of white middle-aged men over whatever it is that they think the Palestinians are. They're not keen at all. They're still marching up and down the street shouting for, global intifada.
Of course they are.
So even his own pathetic attempt to try and appease them hasn't worked.
But you can't appease these people. You can't appease the Corbynistas. You can't appease the PPE.
But this reveals how useless a politician Keir Starmer is, because he thinks he's doing something which is going to help him, stave off the inevitable demise of his career. But it isn't going to, because he's going down the gurgler faster than you can say, Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah,
he really is.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
I don't think he's going to be. I think he's going to be out by Christmas at this rate.
Do you think?
Yeah. I just think he's completely lost. He's completely deluded. Delusional was the word that Mike Huckabee used about Bridget Phillipson. He is delusional. Like he walked up on stage with Donald Trump, and I think we probably should play that again. He walked up on stage thinking he was going to be given an opportunity to speak, because he actually, in his head, he was telling himself, I'm the second most important person on this stage, when in fact he's about the 37th most important, as Donald Trump proved when he was inviting different world leaders up to talk to him.
But he was sort of toying with him, wasn't he, Trump?
Yeah, totally.
And if there's one thing, and you won't like me, well, maybe, I don't know. If there's one thing that I thought Starmer had done all right with, the one thing...
This could be good.
The one small thing...
Let's go.
I think, my view, the one small thing he'd done up until this point was he'd not gone in really hard in terms of using opportunities to criticise Trump. He tried to keep him sweet. He tried to keep him on side. But clearly, if you listen to Rubio, if you listen to what Trump was saying, if you listen to what Trump said on Air Force One, where he said there were nations that weren't helping the process by recognising the state of Palestine, he's annoyed the Americans.
Of course.
He's really annoyed the Americans.
The only reason Trump was willing to kind of, in some ways entertain Starmer was because he wanted the state visit, right?
Yeah.
Starmer came with his little, I've got a letter for you here, his little, little hot little hand. It's appalling, kind of Uriah Heep-like kind of crawling in. This is the same man who criticised Trump's peace deal in 2020 and said it was rubbish. The same man who said he wouldn't want to have dinner with him. The same man who thinks that Donald Trump's a scumbag, doesn't like Donald Trump, pretends to like him in order to make it work for his own kind of political career. But, Trump has used him and now has finished with him, doesn't need him anymore, and so he treated him like this. And this is what he did the other day.
United Kingdom. Where's United Kingdom? Where's our friend? Come here. Is everything going good?
Very good.
That's very nice that you're here. These people all came in like 20-minute notice, and I think it's fantastic. And we have so many others, and just so many others. And
look on his face when he realises that Trump has literally just turned his back on him. When he's about to think that he's about to be asked to speak.
And you can see Giorgia Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister,
she's loving it,
smirking.
She's loving it because he's obviously not very popular, even with these other world leaders. They don't like him because he's a slime ball. At the end of the day, he doesn't believe in anything. He'll do anything to try and ingratiate himself with Trump. He thinks he's the most important person there, and he's not. No. And it's just embarrassing for him.
But he got singled out to get embarrassed.
Yeah, he did.
That was the whole point of him being singled out. It wasn't singling him out to say thank you.
Yeah.
He was singling out.
And Trump knew exactly what he was doing. He literally pulled him onto the punch and just went like that.
Bang. Sit
down, you useless, hopeless creep of a bloke. That's what he did. He might as well have said it out loud.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not finished with Starmer yet either. Coming up, we're going to hear Rachel Reeves telling us how good she is at running the economy. This is Comedy Gold, ladies and gentlemen. 25 minutes past 6, back after this.
It's unbelievable, Mark, how there's nobody, trust me, in your party that thought this was going to implode this badly, this quickly. Tell me I'm right, man.
Keir Starmer's Labour Party don't give a damn about the British Army veterans who served in Northern Ireland.
They should.
But they don't.
Across across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 29 minutes past 6. I'm here with Theo Usherwood. Morning, Mike and Theo, says Julian. The total funding for illegal migrants should be provided by the human rights lawyers, Lib Dems and the Migrants Welcome Brigade. Give them a month to register as a donor and see what happens. I reckon they'd soon lose interest. Yeah, absolutely right. And this from Nan in Wales, it says, Morning, Mike. When a government decides to treat criminal migrants better than its own citizens using their tax money, then it's a failed government, and so it should dissolve and go back to the electorate. There is no other answer at this point. I think that's right. I mean, the problem is people see those stories. Yeah. As you say, it might not be, in the scheme of things, a massive amount of money, but it's a big amount of money to ordinary people. 260 million quid to be spent on, giving free art lessons and Monopoly games to migrants while they're waiting to be deported.
It's an amount of money that people can quantify. You can imagine quite easily what 260 million would buy.
Well, they would buy quite a lot of nurses in hospital, wouldn't it? That kind of thing. A lot of teachers in schools that say they haven't got any teachers.
Nurses on 30 grand. So what you're dealing with, you're talking an annual salary for 500-600 nurses at least, aren't you?
Yeah, more than that. No, a lot more than that. I mean, if you multiply 30,000 by 100, you get what? 3 million, right? Yeah. This is 260 million. So that means several hundred nurses, maybe 1,000, possibly more than that.
Sorry, yeah, you're almost we're nearly 9,000 nurses.
9,000 nurses at 30,000 a year. There you go.
And police officers on a similar amount of money.
Police officers, you get 9,000 police officers.
That's half what the promise was in terms of increasing.
And so when people say, it's not that much money, well, it is actually. I mean, that's the problem. Let's get a voice note from Sally on the state of the economy.
Morning, Mike. Always look forward to your programme. Can you please explain to me, when the economy is in such a parlous state, that yesterday in Parliament, Keir Starmer said that we would be sending money to help rebuild Gaza? Well, where's that money coming from? And now you're talking about a new detention centre costing millions. Whatever the country is coming to, I just don't know.
Sally, it's a very good point. Again, the government manages to find money when they need to find money. But they don't actually have any money. And one of the reasons the China crisis is going on is because we're in so much debt to China that we need to borrow more money from China. Therefore, we can't be going around calling them an enemy. This is the government's press release this week, where they announced a 20 million humanitarian aid package as part of a broader 116 million pounds the UK has committed to Palestine this year. We don't have it. People don't want to give Palestine any money. Sorry.
This isn't a new phenomenon. I remember speaking to my grandfather's long since dead. He fought in the Second World War. He died 25 years ago, and he gave money to charity. He did quite well for himself, and he gave money to charity, and he gave money to charity because he was always worried about the men, the men of the generation who served underneath him, and them not being able to heat their homes. And this was going through the 90s, and pensioners were feeling it. And I remember him, seeing he got a letter through saying, well, we've helped these people in Africa, or these people over, or these people in South America, and he was just like, he wrote to the chief executive, he said, forget it, no more money. I want you to help people in this country. And I did an interview. I won't name them because it was off. It was, it wasn't recorded, but I did an interview with a very prominent celebrity the other day, and they were talking about it was to do with a charity work, and And they were saying, the charity was, we're doing all of this thing. Yes, but what are you doing in this country? You're doing in this country. Not what are you doing overseas. I want to know, I'll support you, I'll help you, but I want it to be in this country. And that's not an unreasonable thing. They were very liberal, they were very open-minded, but you have my support for the work that you do in this country, because there are people suffering in this country. There are parents having to go to food banks in this country, people having to rely on handouts in this country. What are you doing here? Everybody recognises the situation that is taking place around the world, right? We can all see it, right? But when people are suffering here, then sort this problem out here. That's why we have charities based in this country. That's why we elect the government in this country, not to solve the problems.
And we don't have that many charities that only help people in this country, actually, because most of them are internationally based. Most of them are giving money away to all sorts of parts of the world. Let's have a look at Rachel Reeves, who thinks that she knows how to run the economy. This is very funny.
Are tax rises coming down the track?
Yeah, but I think that this government are making... in terms of the ambition of this government, it is big.
But you agreed, yes, there are tax rises coming down the track.
Well, I was really clear during the general election campaign, and we discussed this many times, that I would always make sure that the numbers add up.
Can you promise the British people you're not going to get stuck in a doom loop of having to go through this cycle every year of having to find more tax to fill the black hole?
Nobody wants that cycle to end more than I do, Sam. That's why that is why we're putting all the effort into growing our economy, because that in the end is what brings in the tax revenues to be able to afford to keep taxes low.
She's changed her hair colour again, by the way. So at the beginning of the interview, she says yes when he asks her whether there's tax rises coming, and then completely sort of tries to cover it over and goes, oh, well, no, we're not talking about that. And then she talks about how, yes, we are in a doom loop. She just went, there's nobody more who wants to get out of the cycle than I do, when he's described the cycle of doom. So she's basically admitted, one, yes, there are going to be tax rises. Two, there's going to be, we are stuck in a cycle of doom.
Yes, so brilliant.
Right? And the numbers always add up, don't they? They add up to a massive bloody disaster is what they add up to.
But if you look at, you know, unemployment's hit a 4-year high.
Yeah.
So if you're a business and you're trying to make a decision about whether to invest or whether to take people on, you're looking... The reason there's a doom loop is because Rachel Reeves in the last budget when increased national insurance contributions.
123,000 people now off payroll since they got into power. 123,000 jobs gone.
Can I speak to somebody? I'm sure there'll be somebody who runs a business who can send in a voice note.
Yeah.
You know, the decisions that they're making, or sending a text or WhatsApp or whatever, and they will be making decisions where they haven't taken somebody on because it's too costly to take somebody on.
Yeah.
And actually, the whole point, and this is going back to Starmer in the election, I remember him saying, we're going to get economic growth. You can do the voice better than me, I'm not even going to try. But, you know, we're going to get economic growth. And we get economic growth, and therefore more people are working, more people are setting up businesses, and then you end up them paying tax, and then you get more money coming into the Treasury as a result of economic growth. And economic growth, we're now, you know, according to the IMF, we're a basket case.
Yeah, we are. Well, I mean, there's a whole load of bad stories today, right, about the economy, right? Inflation is going to grow. It's going to go from bad to worse, according to the Sun on page 2. The IMF is warning of rising prices in the UK, higher than in any other country in the G7. That's the front page of the Times. The UK has the worst living standards in the G7. That's on page 17 of the Daily Telegraph. Yeah. You know, the hits just keep on coming. They can't get it right. Maybe what we should do is seek out two young men walking in a forest together, talking about how good the economy is going to be. Check this out.
How do you really comfort people on tax? Because that is the biggest challenge to any Labour government. You can't manage the economy.
It's one of the reasons I appointed Rachel Reeves to the role of Chancellor, because she's obviously got Bank of England experience and she's got sort of iron rules as Rachel. She will not sign off anything unless it's fully costed and fully funded. Tax levels now are the highest for 70 years, so we can't just go and pull the tax lever. That's why we've said no increase in income tax, in national insurance or VAT. You've got to show, I understand, it really matters.
Yeah, can't pull the tax lever anymore because he's snapped it off. The only thing she's got ironed is her bleeding hair. That looks as if she's ironed it. But apart from that, you know, the iron rules I'm not sure about.
Well, the iron
Rachel Reeves' iron rules.
If the markets don't believe what Rachel Reeves is saying, or don't believe,
and they don't,
then they're going to have an adverse reaction. There's nothing that Rachel, you know, if Rachel Reeves is going to continue in this doom loop of raising taxes, if it's going to become
which she's
hard,
now admitted that she's in,
which she's in, and it's going to become hard, it's going to become less and less attractive to invest in this country, then the situation is only going to get worse, and they're going, and the you know, people are going to want their money back.
Yeah,
basically.
Well, exactly right. And this from Nigel in Caerphilly, South Wales. Good morning, Mike. Great show as always. I'm an avid listener to Talk 12 hours a day, most weekdays. I don't see why Rachel from accounts can't raid money from putting a tax on internet sales, with a proportion of the tax being used to reduce reduce business rates on the high street. The tax would bring an income and hopefully save the high street, says Nigel. Come on, reform. I think there's a by-election going on in Caerphilly, isn't there? In reasonably short order for the Senedd, which is going to be very interesting. And of course, next May we've got the whole shebang up for grabs, and it looks as though, certainly on current status on that poll today, that Reform will absolutely walk it, and they'll take control of the Senate. And Labour will lose control of Wales for the first time in their history.
Ever, yeah. I mean,
ever.
And it's going to be, the Senedd is now going to be a straight fight between Reform and Plaid Cymru.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Did you see the video with Jacob Rees-Mogg? Like, the ultimate Tory, right?
Yeah.
There's nobody more conservative than Jacob Rees-Mogg saying did a video for Tory voters saying, actually, we want you to vote for Reform because we have to recognise now this is a straight fight between Reform and Plaid Cymru.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is that actually Reform becomes, we get into this, Plaid Cymru's home rule, right? It wants Wales, ultimately it wants Wales to separate from the rest of the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
And so Reform becomes the vote for the union. It's a union vote.
Yeah.
And that's a really centrist position.
Sure.
Most people in Wales recognise the benefits of being
Scotland,
close.
of course, because I was talking to some people yesterday about Scotland, and again, Reform, slightly more unknown quantity up there, but will probably not have enough to take over from the SNP, but will have enough to challenge the SNP, and it will be the same bun fight, because it will be unionists versus separatists.
And it feels like the only federal party in the country right now is Reform.
Yeah.
Lib Dems are essentially an English party. Very likely Labour are going to be reduced to being going on this electoral map and looking at what's going to happen both in Wales and in Scotland in next May's local election. An English party. Yeah. Ditto the Conservatives. Yeah. And the only party that has any chance of taking on the separatist movement, for want of a better expression, in Wales and Scotland is Reform. Is Reform and Nigel Farage.
Absolutely right. Why are the government so intent on destroying the country? Says Natasha. It's a good question. We'll answer it coming up after this.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:43. I'm Mike Graham. Theo Rushwood is here with us. We're going through the papers this morning. We've got so much to get on with because there's quite a few big stories going on. Andrew says this: I would like nothing more than reform to be the next government, and I'll be voting for them. The problem is the lefties are so spiteful. There will be protests and marches every day, and thanks to the blob, they won't be given a chance to change things. This country is beyond saving, I'm afraid. It's quite sad, and it all started with Tony Blair. Yeah, I mean, there is that problem. A couple of other stories quickly to mention, because on the front, talking of the civil service and the blob, right? The civil service mutiny over the Chinese spy scandal. This is two former cabinet secretaries have led a civil service mutiny, according to the Telegraph, Lord Case and Lord Sedwill, because basically Matthew Collins is the guy who's been blamed. He was blamed by Dan Jarvis just the other day in Parliament for screwing up this CPS prosecution of two English individuals who were supposedly working on behalf of the Chinese government inside Parliament and spying on MPs, right? Because it looks as though, again, this is a massive scandal for Downing Street. They've tried to throw a civil servant under the bus and blame him. Nobody's buying it.
Yeah, and Lord Case, of course, Cabinet Secretary under Boris Johnson, Lord Sedwill for Theresa May.
Yeah.
And it's circling the wagons here because Dan Jarvis, I mean, it was a fairly unprecedented step, the Security Minister, to go and name Matthew Collins as the Deputy National Security Advisor, as the person, the Telegraph reporting, of course, being responsible for that evidence.
Yes.
We'd have thought at least an attempted prosecution in the courts against Christopher Cash and Christopher Berry, accused of spying for China. And now those two, Lord Case and Lord Sedwill, have rounded to defend Matthew Collins, and I think it is.
Well, because it's pretty rum, isn't it, of Dan Jarvis and the government to try and blame some kind of insignificant civil servant. You know, we're expected to believe, I said this yesterday, that this guy on his own decided not to help the CPS, decided not to give them the information they wanted, decided without any reference to his boss, who is of course the chief national security advisor, Jonathan Powell, without any reference to his boss, he decided to do that on his own without telling anybody else. I just don't believe it. Nobody does.
No, and it's just worth noting, you know, where this has come from. Why do we find ourselves in this situation? Because the other person who was furious yesterday was the Speaker of the House of
Yes, we got a clip actually.
Absolutely livid, because he's making the point, perfectly validly, by the way, that the Chinese have now just been given carte blanche. They can come in, they can spy, they can do whatever they like, because they know that we're too
nearly livid to call them the enemy. Let's have a look at what Lindsay Hall said. He wasn't happy.
I think there is something the government ought to be aware of. It is this Parliament that has been spied on. It is MPs who have been here. It is MPs' offices that have been infiltrated. And as it stands, what we have seen is the payment for spying on what I believe we should be protected. At this moment, I feel we haven't had the protection. I certainly don't blame the Minister. I know that he will be answering a lot in his statement and taking many questions. But I do want to put on record, I'm angry, I'm disappointed. My job is to protect Parliament. I feel we aren't getting that protection.
And there he says it.
Where I think this will go back to eventually is I think this will go back to the Treasury and Rachel Reeves.
Yes.
That's because that's the relationship that everybody is scrutinising in terms of trying to protect, not to offend the Chinese, that actually the Treasury and Department for Business are so keen to ensure that we don't offend the Chinese, we don't upset the Chinese government, and because we've
borrowed so much money from them.
We've also got so much more on the hook to them for so much. But remember, when Rachel Reeves went over to China, she came back with a deal worth only £600 million.
Yeah.
This is not, it's a one-way relationship.
We got less money than Indonesia got. We got less money than Peru got, I seem to remember.
This is a one-way relationship, and I don't think it's any bad thing to be able to say to the Chinese on this occasion, you know what, no, you can't spy.
But that money to drop in the ocean, don't forget, because the real borrowing that we're doing is actually on our debt, because China is actually buying our debt. So when we go, when people say to us, you know, where is all this money coming from? We go to the international banking sector to get loans, right? That is all underwritten by China.
Yeah,
that's what they're doing,
and it's frightening, and we've not stood up to them. That's why, But this is the first. And you mentioned the Chagos Islands, of course. We've basically kowtowed on that. And the Chinese influence emerged.
Yeah, we rolled over.
Totally.
Let's look at the front page of The Guardian, not a place I go normally, but they've got an exclusive by Rajiv Syal. Keir Starmer's national grooming gang inquiry has stalled amid wrangles over its remit, difficulties in finding a senior legal figure willing to become its chair. So people have been asking the question, whatever happened to this grooming gangs inquiry, the rape gangs inquiry that they announced? I'm pretty sure they announced it back at sort of spring, didn't they? Well, it was like March, April time, and so far nothing has happened. They still haven't managed to appoint a chair for the panel, right? Terms of the investigation are still being discussed. 4 months after the Prime Minister bowed to pressure and set it up. So what, 4 months ago, so it's now October, so what are we talking about, what, June?
June, yeah.
So in June, they decided to do and launch it, even though they said originally they spent a load of time saying, we're not going to do it, we don't need to do it because, there's already been an inquiry. They then said, all right, we'll do it. And now it's very clear they're dragging their feet. Why? Because they know that if they start looking into what happened in some of these northern towns, they will find out that Labour councillors were complicit in covering it up. They'll find that some Labour councillors might have even been complicit in taking part in it, and they certainly know that the police were also involved. And so they don't want to do this, and I think it's an absolute disgrace.
Judges and lawyers appear to be reluctant to head the inquiry.
Oh, yeah.
A source said. Of course they're reluctant to head the inquiry.
Why?
We always know. Well, I'll tell you why they're reluctant to head the inquiry. Because these inquiries, wherever they, they are always... They'll always find a certain amount of blame, but they'll never find too much blame. The remit of this inquiry this issue is so entrenched. What any decent judge or any decent lawyer who heads it will find, I have no doubt will blow the doors
They're
off.
calling it a politically sensitive subject. It says here, grooming gangs remain a toxic issue because chairs would have to explore why men of Pakistani origin had dominated many of the abuse rings, according to a source. Some have been put off by the intense media scrutiny of chairs of the IICSA inquiry, which was set up after Jimmy Savile. I mean, this is disgusting, isn't it?
No, and it just shows complete inability to get to grips with this problem. The reason we need this inquiry is to get justice for those who have survived, and also, I think, to get justice for those who haven't survived this appalling abuse, a horrific sexual abuse.
Yeah,
and it needs, this inquiry needs to take place, but we're too. Yeah, I think there's an element to that section you just read there, right, where somebody would come in, would be you'd think too frightened, too scared, too
worried about scrutiny. They shouldn't be worried. These are supposed to be legal people who don't actually have a problem doing that sort of thing. Have we got that? Have we got that clip? I think we have. We have got a clip. This is Starmer defending the grooming gang's U-turn that he performed a little bit earlier in the year.
This inquiry, in direct answer to your question, must go where the evidence takes it, and I'll be absolutely clear about that. And if that's questions of ethnicity, that's questions of the role of public officials, if it's questions of assumptions that were made that shouldn't have been made, all of that needs to be uncovered. No stone will be left unturned here.
Yeah, no stone will be left unturned. 4 months later, no stone has been unturned at all.
No.
Right? So he's talking, once again, more lies from Keir Starmer. We should have a lie detector, actually, on this show.
Or a barometer.
But, a barometer of, like, Keir Starmer, because everything he says is a bloody lie. I'm sick to death of it. Why can't he tell the truth? What's wrong with him? Has he got some kind of, disorder?
What do you mean?
Has he? Well, maybe he can't tell the truth. Maybe he's just one of these people that can't tell the truth. I don't know.
No.
I can't remember, can you remember the last time he told the truth? About anything?
Last time?
The last time he told the truth. I'll give you a second to think about it. Because we should probably break. I'll give you a second to think about it. When we come back, you can tell me the last time Keir Starmer told the truth. Maybe out there you can tell me. When was the last time he told the truth? 6:52.
ground. Put those IOs in the ground.
He's been identified as an undergraduate student at the University of Oxford at Balliol College, one of the very good colleges as well, you know. And his name is Samuel Williams, and apparently he's from Tunbridge Wells. As I've messaged the Metropolitan Police, they have messaged me back. I'd like this person arrested and questioned. I mean, these are death threats. These are clear death threats. This goes far, far beyond what we've heard from, you know, I don't know, let's give an example plucked from the thin air. Lucy Connolly.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 6:56. I'm here with Theo Usherwood. Let's get a quick voice note from Shane on art classes for migrants.
Good morning, Mike. Shane in Bournemouth. I've got a good art lesson for the migrants. They can paint themselves a map to find a way back to Dover to get back on a boat and get themselves back over to France. I think that's fair enough, isn't it? That's not being inhumane. I mean, they're going to be learning at least. Anyway, great show.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Paint themselves a map. Brilliant. Bit of impressionism down at the Gatwick Detention Centre. I asked you earlier, Theo, whether there's any evidence that Keir Starmer's ever told the truth, or when was the last time he did tell the truth, and what have you got for us?
Yeah, well, I was struggling, so I asked ChatGPT, when did Keir Starmer last tell the truth?
Yeah.
It replied, that's a provocative question. There isn't a definitive, verifiable moment I can point to when Keir Starmer last told the truth.
There we go.
There we go.
And according to what I've asked Google to tell me, what do you call a person who doesn't tell the truth? The overview is a liar, or more formally, a dishonest person, a deceiver, or a mendacious person. And in fact, we've got Damien from Behind the Glass has come up with an even better definition, I think, where apparently it's called mythomania. Compulsive lying, a persistent and uncontrollable urge to lie, going beyond occasional fibbing or social lies. Lying often involves creating intricate and dramatic, sometimes unbelievable tales about one's past achievements or experiences. Like, for example, saying, we worked very well behind the scenes to get the peace deal done. So Keir Starmer suffers from mythomania. We've finally solved the problem.
Thank you, Damien.
Thank you, Damien. Very well done. Finally, a Ponzi scheme, 5 million quid's worth of a Ponzi scheme, which you might remember was linked to Alistair Campbell's son, a man by the name of Rory Campbell. Many, many people, about 50 people who backed him, who lost up to £500,000, including his own parents, by the way. So Alistair Campbell kind of put some money into it. The police have been involved for some time. Now a man from North London has been arrested on suspicion of running a £5 million Ponzi-style pyramid scheme.
Yes, this was a promise when he started the fund, Rory Campbell started the fund back in 2017, to beat the bookies with bets on games, football games, including the Premier League and Spain's La Liga. And the idea was that if he went with this scheme, then you'd outperform the bookies. But of course, what he was doing this is the allegation, which is yet to be, obviously to go through any court process. But the allegation was that he was using new investors to pay back returns on to previous investors, people who had invested early in the scheme. But one investor is believed to have died of cancer while chasing a missing fortune. Another is brought out a £266,000 county court action, but is understood to have settled for less.
Yeah,
and of
there's
course
going to be more to come on this story.
This story is continuing.
Yeah, absolutely right. Meanwhile, just a quick one because we're about to run out of time. Angela Rayner has taken the £17,000 payoff that she was due to get as a former cabinet minister, having taken basically retirement, if you like, from that. We'll look into that a little bit later on because it was said that she wouldn't take the money, but of course she has. We told you she would. Theo, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. 0344 499 1000. What does the government mean by working behind the scenes on the peace deal, says Anne? Does it mean doing the filing? Yeah, probably. Yeah, just ask the compulsive liar, the Prime Minister. We'll see you after the news. just been talking in the office here about how many of us have been attacked at some point or other by some form of flying beast or any wildlife. I mean, so we'll take your stories this morning.
Hello, this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino?
Right? Yeah,
okay.
rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to very nearly 3 minutes past 7. It is Wednesday the 15th of October. We are smack bang in the middle of the month. As ever, as you know, if you haven't managed to listen to the whole show, if you check out the Morning Glory podcast that comes out around about 10:15, 10:30 every single day. That's got the best bits in it. And also, if you've missed any of the show, you can go to our YouTube channel, The Independent Republic of Mike Graham, it's called. And of course, there you will find not only every single first hour, like the one we've just done with Theo Usherwood, where we go run through the papers, but also a full show every single day that's there, all 4 hours of it. You can go and watch it at your leisure, and of course you can watch Plank of the Week and all the other clips that we put out through the course of the day too. And if you've got any stories for us, you need to send them in to tips@talk.tv. tips@talk.tv. Coming up, we're going to be talking about a great many things, including, of course, Rachel Reeves, because she's back in the limelight. She's off to see the IMF in Washington, apparently, later on today. But the IMF have got some news for her, and it's not particularly good. On the front page of the Times, it says prices will rise faster in Britain than in any other major economy this year. Inflation is going to hit living standards. The IMF said consumer prices are expected to rise by an average of 3.4% this year, up from 2.5% last year. The rise has been driven in part by increases in the price of food, particularly dairy products and beef. So basically, living standards are going to go down in this country. There is a national decline underway. According to the front page of the Daily Mail, Labour isn't working, brackets again. Number of jobless hits a 4-year high. 123,000 people less are now working in this country since Labour got in. Fewer jobs, fewer opportunities, and much less investment going on. Highest inflation in the G7 coming up as well. Growth in wages and living standards stalling. So we've got no hope for the future. We've got nothing to look forward to. November the 26th is when Rachel Reeves is going to kick in with her new budget, and that is going to be depressing as hell, because she's going to come after anybody who's ever done anything in their life, ever made savings, put money into a pension, put money into a business, bought some stocks and shares, managed to get an ISA or II. She's coming after everything, right? Because she is completely and utterly incapable of controlling government spending. And she's a disgrace, quite frankly. Keir Starmer appointed her, but as we've been discussing, we think we found out what is wrong with Keir Starmer. He suffers from mythomania, or is it mythomania? It's a psychological condition characterised by a compulsive and habitual tendency to lie, often with no clear benefit or motive. It's brilliant. We've finally worked out why he's so useless. Because he's a compulsive liar. He suffers from mythomania. Maybe we could get some kind of psychologist on to talk about other people that have suffered from that. He just can't help himself. He just tells lies all the time. One of the true stories we've got on the front page of The Sun today, illegal migrant madness. What a waste of money. £260 million spent on centres for deportation near Gatwick Airport, including paying for art classes for the migrants just before we kick them out of the country. What an absolute joke. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Els Bells in Shropshire says, morning, Mike. Starmer's comment in Parliament yesterday regarding the fake BS of working behind the scenes, etc., while Wayne and Waynetta sit either side of him, is a country that is being run by liars and charlatans and deserve nothing more than to be treated as a pariah state and isolation. Absolutely disgraceful. Mike, what a shocking waste of money, says Mick in Spain. These people should be deported, not supported. Labour have made us a laughing stock. Well, he's talking, of course, about the ridiculous notion that what we should do is spend £260 million on 2 migrant centres near Gatwick, where we put people just before they get deported. But while we deport them, and while they spend 6.7 weeks there before they get kicked out of the country, we should give them basically access to board games, puzzles, library books, free art and craft classes, IT tutorials and English lessons. What's the point of giving them English lessons if you're kicking them out of the country? And why are we paying for this through the nose? It's absolute madness. Let's talk to Joanna Bell, political commentator. I'm sure she'll be as upset about this as I am. Joanna, very good morning to you.
Hello.
Yeah, listen, this is a joke, isn't it? 260 million quid spent on a bunch of bozos who were kicking out of the country anyway.
It's absolutely outrageous, Mike. But obviously the government are trying to placate these people. They don't want them to make a fuss. They don't want them to go around stabbing people with screwdrivers or raping children. So they're trying to keep them occupied with art lessons. And that's really what's at the root of it. They're spending $250 million of taxpayers' money giving these people, and some of them very, very violent, art lessons. But the reason is to keep them pacified in case they attack the locals.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, surely they're not being let out of these places, are they? I mean, these should be secure units. They should be, if they are, you know, deporting people, they shouldn't be allowed to walk around and get outside. I mean, hopefully that's not happening, is it?
Well, they're getting taxi services to doctor's appointments halfway down the country. You know, they're able to go out. Yeah, they are able to go out as far as I know.
Yeah.
They're going to the shop. They're going out. You know, they're on the streets smoking cigarettes in tracksuits. You know, I mean...
Yeah, apparently, I mean, in these places, right, despite the fact that you can't smoke, if I go to a hotel and pay £1,000 a night, right, if I light up a cigarette, I get, like, arrested or chased out of the place by security. These guys apparently have pervasive and unchecked smoking and vaping, both in common areas and in rooms where they're staying. So there's no law being adhered to here.
No, well, look, what's happening is the hotels are taking a serious amount of money off the government. And it's not the same rules don't apply because this is their home, right? And they have skeleton staff. They might have 1 or 2 people working in the hotel. They don't have a turn-down service. They're not getting any of the luxuries that hotels typically offer.
Yeah.
So they can do what they want. And now, I just want to say, whoever came up with that headline, "A Waste of Money," deserves an award.
It's not bad, is it? It's not bad. Departure Scrounge is pretty good as well. Apparently, the average length of stay in Brook House, which is one of these places, Brook House and Tinsley House, around 200 metres from the main runway at Gatwick. Apparently, the average stay is 6.7 weeks. And according to the piece in The Sun, migrants are given a free international phone call and access to e-books, newspapers in different languages, and religious texts. Why? Why are we giving them anything?
I mean, it's crazy, and we're not even giving. They're not even giving their own citizens that access to that type of material. So it's just ridiculous. But like I said, it's to contain them and to keep them occupied so they don't start riots and start going out and doing the things that they have been doing so far, which we all know about.
Yeah.
Which, you know, everybody's, you know, is absolutely. We're rioting about it. Look what happened, in that hotel, the Bell Hotel in Epping. They're out attacking school children. It's absolutely disgraceful. So this is probably the government's new idea that will keep them away from the locals.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if art lessons is going to work.
Meanwhile, what's her name? Shabana Mahmood is on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, admitting basically the UK has lost control of its borders. Well, we could have told her that before she came in. She's apparently going to make a speech today where she's going to be talking with a load of Balkan interior ministers in London. She's going to say that basically only through international cooperation can countries secure their borders. All this government seems to do is organise meetings. We've got what's her face, Yvette Cooper, coming back to Downing Street today. She's going to host a meeting about what to do about Palestine with a load of, other Home Secretaries from around Europe, right? No point at all to that because it's already being sorted out by Israel. Thanks very much indeed. So I don't know what this government's doing. All they seem to do is hold summits, meetings, talking shops, but they do absolutely nothing.
It's disgraceful. She's meant to be the Home Secretary. She's meant to be regaining control of the borders. I saw her at Labour conference. She was in conversation with Patrick Maguire from The Times, and she said that Yvette Cooper had laid the foundations for her to take over, and she wasn't blaming the former administration on what happened, that she was going to get a handle on this crisis, that she was, cooperating with the French
Tough
government.
as nails, apparently she is, right?
I mean, it's ridiculous. She said that she was brilliant in a crisis and that she was going to, close the borders, essentially.
Well,
she's saying she can't.
No, she can't do it. I mean, she's quoted...
She can't do her job.
No, she's quoted in the Telegraph as saying, "I'm proud that the UK is leading the charge on a coordinated response to tackle organised crime and to take down the vile people smuggling gangs who put the value of human lives behind their own profits." Sorry, I must have missed that. I don't know. I haven't been off lately, but I don't know if you remember when she's managed to cut down the vile people smuggling gangs. Did she take them down over the weekend when I wasn't paying attention?
No, look, they're all paying lip service. I don't think any of them could lie straight in bed. They can't handle this crisis. And sadly, that's why people are moving to reform, because, they think that they can handle it. And maybe they can. I'm not sure if they're the right answer to this problem, or if they have any answers to this problem other than what they said about mass deportations.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think it's going to work.
I think the problem is for the Tories and for Labour is that people are willing to give them a chance. There's a piece in the Mail today. Nigel Farage would win the largest Commons majority in modern political history if a general election took place now. An explosive new poll by MRP, shared with the Daily Mail, carried out by communications firm PLMR with poster Electoral Calculus. Basically, they're finding that Reform would get 445 seats, Labour down to 73. And guess what? The Conservatives, 7. That's amazing.
It's absolutely crazy. And you just think that, are reform going to be... Are they really the answer to Britain's problems, or are they just another bunch of losers?
Well, I think but the point about whether or not they're another bunch of losers is that people are willing to give them a chance, because people are so fed up with having had literally the last 25 years of, Tony Blair, followed by Gordon Brown, followed by David Cameron, followed by Theresa May, followed by Boris Johnson, followed by Rishi Sunak, Liz Truss in between. It's been a complete and utter disaster. And then to top it all off, the cherry on the cake, the compulsive liar Keir Starmer, who, I don't know whether you heard earlier, we've worked out what his problem is. He suffers from mythomania, which is a psychological condition characterised by a compulsive and habitual tendency to lie, often with no clear benefit or motive.
Well, he's a barrister. They're paid to lie. That's their profession, isn't it? They lie on behalf of their client. Yes. And, he's a really bad one at that. And nobody believes a word that he says. He's an embarrassment. Donald Trump absolutely skewered him.
Oh, my God.
On a global scale.
That was the worst, most cringe-worthy thing I think I've ever seen.
I must have watched that video about 15 times. Every time I watch it, I just think, oh, my God, it's so embarrassing for Britain to have him as the British Prime Minister. He's just so hapless.
He is. He's hapless. He's hopeless. He's gormless. He's spineless. He's, every word you can think of that ends in less.
This is it. And he betrayed the Jewish people by declaring a Palestinian state without any conditions to that. He never said anything about returning the hostage. And now he's trying to stand on stage and own it, like as if he was instrumental in creating peace in the Middle East, and he had no part in it.
No.
As far as I know.
Let's have a look at what he said in Parliament yesterday, right? He said, believe it or not, that recognising Palestine actually helped get the ceasefire organised.
Mr. Speaker, we've worked behind the scenes for months with the US, Arab and European nations to help deliver a ceasefire, get the hostages out, get aid in and secure a better future for Israel, Gaza and the West Bank. I am proud of our contribution. And Mr. Speaker, we are in a position to play this role precisely because of the approach this government takes. And Mr. Speaker, that does include our decision to recognise the state of Palestine.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that I've done a terribly good job behind the scenes organising the peace deal in the Middle East. He's talking absolute cobblers.
It's disgraceful.
Mr. Speaker.
It's absolutely, I mean, he's just, you know, he's out of his depth. And there is a part of me that pities him. You know, I do feel sorry for him because he has been absolutely shamed in front of everybody, and I think he really felt it on that stage the other day. You could see his face. Just
he was absolutely mortified because apparently he's quite an arrogant bloke, I'm told by people that know him, and he wouldn't like it. Just a bit of quick breaking news, by the way. Royal Mail has been fined £21 million for missing its first and second class mail delivery targets in 2024-25, according to Ofcom, the regulator. I mean, they've only got one job, like deliver the post. You think you can do that? No, can't do that. We'll find you 21 million then. Yeah, any chance of getting... I mean, when was the last time you sent a letter to anyone?
Oh, well, I am actually a letter writer.
Are you?
Yeah, I am. I know it's it's an old medium.
That's quite quaint. But, I mean, do you find that the letters arrive on time?
Maybe. I do first-class stamps, but I'm not sure if they do or not. I never usually get a response.
Who are you sending letters to that he don't write back to you?
It's a secret.
Okay. It's just threatening letters, are they?
Well,
anyway, no, listen,
you don't send any letters, Mike. I send them to newspapers.
I don't send letters to it. I can't remember the last time I went to a post office, for heaven's sake. Anyway, listen, it's a delight to speak to you, Joanna, as ever. But it looks as though one final one for you. Angela Rayner, you know, we talked about her weeks ago, and we asked the question, do you think she'll take the £17,000 payoff? It turns out that yes, she is going to take the £17,000 payoff that she gets. She's entitled to it, having once been a cabinet minister and now having resigned from that role. Ridiculous.
Well, it is ridiculous, but how is she going to pay her stamp duty bill?
Well,
she needs that money. That's only almost half of what she owes to the taxpayer.
That's true. Yeah.
She really needs that money, and if it's 17 grand is what it takes to get rid of her, then I think that's money well spent. What do you think?
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. I suppose you could be right. Good to see you, Joanna Bell. Thank you very much indeed. That's on the news that Royal Mail fined 21 million for failing to deliver first and second class mail to the targets that they were set. I mean, what else have they got to do? You know, take the letter, put it in the post box, pick it up from the post box, deliver it to the address that's on the front. It's not difficult, is it? For heaven's sake. Let's get a voice note from Vivian.
Morning, Mike. It's Vivian here from Oxfordshire. The last time Slippery Starmer told the truth was when he said that this was Trump's peace deal, and that's probably the only time he's told the truth. This bloke needs to go. The whole lot of them need to go. They're a bunch of cretins. They're ruining this country. I can't bear to watch it. Keep going, Mike. We rely on people like you and Farage and all the other good people that you get on there to tell the truth about this terrible, terrible government.
It really is awful, isn't it? I mean, it's incredible how bad it is. You can't quite believe how bad it is. But you're right. Thank you. An awful lot of people do enjoy listening and do love actually what we do. I met somebody yesterday, Laura was her name, who was a big fan of the show, and she was like, you know, you've actually kept people sane over the course of the last few years because we thought we couldn't say some of the things that you say. Well, you can. You absolutely can. Vivian tells the truth there. This one from Gribbo in Westerham says, so Rachel from Accounts is going on another trip for a government pushing this net stupid zero policy. They do like jetting off a lot. Absolutely right. And Graham in Wrexham says, after seeing Starmer's performance just over the last month, I'm more convinced than ever that this guy is more of a national security threat to this country than China or any hostile state. Well, this is the problem. He seems to be so deluded and full of his own self-importance that you can't quite believe what he's saying. You can't quite believe what he's doing. And you can't quite believe that even he believes it, can you? But we've worked out what's wrong with him. He's suffering from mythomania. Thanks to Damien behind the glass, we've discovered that this is a problem that people suffer from. It's a psychological condition, in fact, characterised by a compulsive and habitual tendency to lie, often with no clear benefit or motive. You know, we've solved the Keir Starmer paradox. What's wrong with him? He's a mythomaniac. That's it. He just can't stop telling lies. 7:03.
Strange twist at the end, when he was after the sentence, and he was speaking from the dock, trying to be heard, making it perfectly clear that he'd rather go back to Afghanistan. Now, in Germany, there are plane loads of people going back to Afghanistan. I wonder if in 18 months' time, the only thing that stops him being on our streets is we have some kind of deal with Afghanistan. I doubt it, but at least it's a possibility, and the Germans have shown us what they can do.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:23. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Rachel Reeves is off to Washington, D.C. to see the IMF. It can't go very well, can it? I mean, they've basically warned on the front page of the Times today about the fact that we are going to have terrible living standards. We're going to have the worst price rises of all the big economies in the G7. 3.4% is what consumer prices are expected to rise by an average of, up from 2.5%. British living standards will rise more slowly than almost every other major economy next year, which is very bad news indeed. We're going to talk to Liam Halligan, columnist at The Telegraph, a man who knows an awful lot about what the economy should be doing and what it's not doing. Here's what Jeff says. He says, "Morning, Mike. Starmer is exactly why professional politicians are finished. The general public will now want real people to govern us who will have its population as its number one concern." And Peter says, "I guess when Starmer was a lawyer, he managed to convince a jury of 12 he was telling the truth, but there's no way he's getting away with lying to millions of us." Well, that's true. And one from Margaret in Birmingham. When is Shabana Mahmood going to start doing what we pay her for, stating the bleeding obvious as usual? More waffle, more gimmicks. That's on the news that she came out and said, we've lost control of our borders. Really? Well, you're the Home Secretary. Sort it. Let's get a voice note from Mark.
Hi, Mark, Bridge North. Just listening to the show, enjoying it as usual. That embarrassment of Keir Starmer on the stage with Donald Trump the other day, oh my God, I've never seen anything like it. What a shameful thing for our country. It reminds me of the story I once heard of a footballer, I can't remember, I think it was Newcastle. He hadn't played all season. He was left on the side, he was sulking, he was slightly injured, and at the end of the season party, they announced the player's player of the season, and for a laugh, they announced his name, and he stood up with his family and he took the plaudits until it clicked. They were joking, and apparently he left the club and was never seen again. That's like Keir Starmer. Just leave, man.
Yeah, the look on his face when he realises that Trump has just literally turned his back on him. Absolutely staggeringly good. Liam Halligan, very good morning to you, sir.
Morning, Mike. Good to be with you.
Good to see you. Rachel Reeves off to Washington, D.C. today, but she's not going to get much good news when she gets there, I don't think, is she?
No, I think she's in denial, Mike. She's, her people are briefing this morning that the UK is a beacon of economic stability. Of course, that's what we all want. We all want our economy to do well. We all want the lives and livelihoods of people in this country to improve. But if you look at what the IMF is actually saying, what they're saying is three things. The first thing they're saying, Mike, is that they were far too pessimistic globally about the impact of Trump's tariffs. Tariffs, of course, are up, but Trump's been engaging in a lot of kidology and sort of arm twisting in negotiation, and the impact on global growth of his tariffs is now going to be less than previously expected. Still negative in the round, but less than expected. The second thing they're saying is that in the UK, in particular, inflation, cost of living increases, has become entrenched. UK inflation is now set to be easily the highest in the G7 this year and next, and much higher than the IMF previously predicted. They're saying UK inflation this year is going to average 3.4%. Now, everyone listening to this will think, 3.4%? Are you telling me living standards have only gone up by 3.4% this year? Pull the other one, it's got bells on. But the official numbers are going to say, according to the IMF, that inflation in this country is the worst in the G7, which makes it much more expensive for the government to borrow money, undermines the public finances. The third thing the IMF is saying, despite the headlines that many other media outlets are going completely mad about, we're going to grow fantastically well, what the IMF is saying, if you look at the fine print, is that growth per head, the expansion of the economy per person in the economy, given that the population is rocketing for reasons that we know, is actually going to be easily the lowest in the G7. And it's growth per head, that's where the rubber hits the road. That's what people really feel. So with the best will in the world, I want the British government to do well. I want us to pull out of this nosedive that the economy is in. But on the one hand, you've got the Chancellor going to the IMF, shouting the odds that the British economy is in great shape and we're a beacon of economic stability. On the other hand, you've got people at the Bank of England saying, out the side of their mouth, that Britain at the moment, and I hate to say this, Mike, is heading for a recession.
Yes, well, I mean, no question about it. And when we talk about standards of living and cost of living and all of that, and you and I have mentioned this before, that, when we get a figure of 3.4% for inflation, it's so much more than that, isn't it? I mean, I'm looking at a story this morning in the Telegraph about Charlie Bigham, the chef who produces ready meals for people. He's saying, as a result of how much it's costing to go out for dinner, he can now say that he's going to raise his own prices, and in certain Waitrose branches, you can spend as much as $29.95 for a pre-prepared beef Wellington, $19.95 for a salmon Wellington, and $16.95 for a coq au vin. I know these are quite expensive meals, and they're not the sort of thing that every average person would buy, but it's a hell of a lot to pay for something that you have to just basically buy at a supermarket, take home, put in a microwave. 30 quid.
We all know living standards are going up. We all know that you pop into a supermarket for a few bits and pieces on a Tuesday night and you've dropped 100 quid, and the fruit looks exactly the same at the end of the meal as it did before you spent the 100 quid. A lot of this comes down, Mike, to energy costs. If you go back to these IMF numbers that have come out today, it's their World Economic Outlook. It's once every 3 to 6 months, the IMF's economist over in Washington, they do a big stock take of the global economy. It's always worth having a look at. And what it's saying is that the reason British living standards are going up so much is energy. Which G7 country's got the lowest inflation at the moment? The French. Why? Because the French have got a load of nukes, and the French aren't doing net zero nearly to the extent that we are.
Yeah.
US inflation is much lower than the UK, despite the inflationary impact of those tariffs by Donald Trump, again, because their energy costs are so much lower.
Yes.
I do get a sense from the government, just a sense, I may be being over-optimistic, Mike, that they are starting to smell the coffee when it comes to net zero. They're starting to realise that Ed Miliband is actually an outlier, is actually pretty dangerous, a zealot when it comes to this. And if they do want to improve the environment, and we all want to improve the environment, if you keep jacking up energy costs, if you keep massively bunging loads of money to your mates in the green lobby, the subsidies, and those, green entrepreneurs are then bunging your own party loads of money, which is basically what's happening, then you're going to lose the goodwill of the general public when it comes to these issues. And people are going to come along and say, you know what, forget the environment. We can't even think about the environment. Energy costs are too high. And that would be a step back as well. We're going to lose the whole argument. Labour have got to realise this. Unless net zero starts producing what it always said it would produce, cheap energy. But the reality, Mike, despite what Ed Miliband says out there in cloud cuckoo land, green energy, certainly at the moment, is not cheap energy, because we have got the highest share of renewables in our energy mix of any major economy in the world, and yet we've got easily the most expensive energy, Mr. Miliband.
Yeah, it's absolutely bonkers, crazy. Let's have a quick look at what Rachel Reeves was saying this very morning. A couple of slip-ups in what her answers were here.
There are tax rises coming down the track.
Yeah, but I think that this government are making... in terms of the ambition of this government, it is big.
But you agreed, yes, there are tax rises coming down the track.
Well, I was really clear during the general election campaign, and we discussed this many times, that I would always make sure that the numbers add up.
Can you promise the British people you're not going to get stuck in a doom loop of having to go through this cycle every year of having to find more tax to fill
I think
the black hole?
Nobody wants that cycle to end more than I do, Sam. That's why that is why we're putting all the effort into growing our economy, because that, in the end, is what brings in the tax revenues to be able to afford to keep taxes low.
Interesting that she kind of initially says yes to more tax rises, and before kind of trying to cover herself, and then later kind of admits that, yeah, we are in a bit of a doom loop. Has Rachel Reeves suddenly decided to start telling the truth?
Look, these guys ideologically have no idea about how economies actually work. As far back as the immediate post-war period, it was Winston Churchill who said, you can't tax your way to growth. Trying to tax your way to growth, Mike, is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to pull himself up. And yet, when there's a gap in the public finances, all Labour can do ideologically is raise taxes. They can't think about, maybe we should spend a bit less. And they say that they want growth. They're giving lip service to growth. And yet their taxes, their increases, a £40 billion tax increase we saw last October, that's led to a huge decline in hiring, that employer national insurance rise. We've seen also Labour's Employment Rights Bill coming in, taking us back to the 70s. Unfair dismissal rights, sick leave, maternity, paternity leave rights from day one. Massive increase in trade union power. That's Angela Rayner's bill. That's going through Parliament. No signs of that being watered down, despite her political demise for now. That is going to slow down hiring and growth. We've seen plunging investment in this country, unfortunately. Again, I don't like to talk the economy down, but we are taking the UK into a doom loop. We are driving the economy over a cliff. Financial markets can see it, Mike. That's why our government is spending well over 100 billion quid a year on debt interest. Far higher borrowing costs than any other G7 economy. Far higher borrowing costs than Greece, Spain and Italy. These aren't paragons of fiscal virtue, these countries.
Right.
Even the weather and the food's a lot better than it is here. They're not known for their fiscal prudence, and yet we are now paying more to borrow. And faced with a hole in the public finances, she needs to get real. She needs to say, look, we're going to lower corporation tax. We're going to make it easier to take people on. We're going to give tax incentives for growth without constantly piling more and more tax on a productive part of the economy, almost as a kind of ideological fetish. The state must be bigger. We know best. Everyone else is evil. We have the right ideas. They don't. No one agrees with them outside their tiny bubble. And in particular, Mike, financial markets don't agree with them. And in the end, that is what counts, because financial markets, the big insurers, investors, pension funds that lend government serious money, 10, 15 billion quid a month, a lot of that borrowing going to debt interest payments, of course, they'll just keep jacking the prices up, and she will be forced to eat her words via a whole amount of pain. I don't like to be overly negative, but I'm afraid that's where we are.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. We are where we are, and it's up to people like you and I, Liam, to point that out to everybody else. It's not being negative, it's just being realistic, and that's really, unfortunately for them, where, as you say, we are. Liam Halligan, columnist at Telegraph, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. You know, there's a lot of talk, isn't there, in parliamentary circles where they go, oh, you're just talking Britain down. No. You're not talking Britain down, you're describing the where and why, wherefore Britain is at. You're describing the state of affairs in this country. That's our job. Our job is not to cheerlead for the government, which is what an awful lot of other media commentators do, constantly looking for positives, you know, constantly looking for things that they can say, we're doing well. We're not doing anything well. Keir Starmer was just publicly humiliated on the international stage only 2 days ago. He just came back to Parliament yesterday and told more lies about how Britain was doing such a great job behind the scenes, and in fact how, you know, recognising Palestine as a state, where they're, by the way, killing people in the streets now. Hamas are just shooting their own Palestinian neighbours because they don't like them, because they're part of a different gang. By recognising those bloodthirsty cockroaches, by recognising those ghastly terrorists, actually it almost scuppered the peace deal. Keir Starmer's in Parliament lying about how actually it helped it. Well, it didn't help it. And they accuse people of talking the country down. Well, they're taking the country down, which is a lot worse than talking it down. They're actually taking it down into the gutter, into the sewer, and further down into the depths and the bowels of the earth, from which it may never recover. So it's up to us to warn you about that, to tell you about that, so that we know that we never give them permission to ever do it again. And according to a new poll this morning, Reform will become such a big party in government that Labour, the Conservatives, the Lib Dems, the Greens and everybody else will just fade off into insignificance. It might be a bit over-optimistic to think about that, but that's basically what people are now saying. They're following my lead, they're following Talk's lead, not because we all think Reform are brilliant, but because Reform are at least offering a slightly different menu. They're offering a slightly different solution. They're offering something other than lies, damned lies and statistics. Let's get a voice note from Jimmy.
Hi Mike, it's Jimmy from Halifax, heading up to Scotland to do my deliveries today. Now it seems that every new Home Secretary, after they've been in for a while, comes out with a big speech, we've lost control of our borders. I think everyone that's been in it has said it for God knows how many years. We all know that. Do something about it. Great show, Mike. See you later.
Jimmy, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, Shabana Mahmood on the front page of the Daily Telegraph today saying, oh yeah, we've lost control of our borders. Yeah, tell me something I didn't know. Deary me. Maggie in London says this, Starmer standing up in the Commons yesterday trying to be the statesman he will never be, ever. The man's a joke. He is a joke, but he's also a compulsive liar. So maybe we should forgive him. We've got a definition for you. It's called he's a mythomaniac, basically. Apparently that's somebody who deliberately and compulsively and habitually has a tendency to lie, often with no clear benefit or motive. It's a psychological condition. Maybe you should see a doctor. There's a talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:41. I'm Mike Graham. Kev in Shropshire says this. Mike, Starmer, yeah, and you are bang on Starmer, not giving a damn about the peace process or the UK and only giving a damn about party politics. Exactly what he said he would not be doing when elected. Lies, lies and more lies. As for Trump, he humours people like Macron, Mandelson and Blair. Well, he does, and he uses them until such time as their usefulness has run out. And it looks as though for Keir Starmer, it's all over. Andrew says Trump is playing the long game with Starmer. He obviously can't stand him. He hasn't forgotten the words of the past, and slowly he's humiliating him at every opportunity. Death by 1,000 cuts. It's going to be great to watch. Yeah, exactly right. We'll come back to that in a minute. Let's talk now, though, to Mike Neville, retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector, because we've got a story here in which it says a number of cops sacked and barred from service has been revealed, finally. They've been trying to crack through what they would regard as people that they previously couldn't actually fire, including 21 struck off for child sexual offences, 735 officers banned from returning to service in the year to the end of March, compared to 539 in the previous year. It's an increase of 24%. I suppose, Mike, a very good morning to you. You don't want to think about bad cops and how many of them there are. And, you know, I suppose in the scheme of things, you might say it's a relatively small proportion. But are they cracking this, or is it still a problem?
I think they're getting on with it, Mike, and I think we've got to recognise this is 0.005% of police officers. So there's a lot of police officers out there right now who are facing knives and guns, and as we saw at the Manchester synagogue, doing their job and keeping us, trying to keep us safe. But there are a small minority of officers who are wicked and evil, as we see. It's unbelievable, isn't it, that you get officers convicted of child sex offences and the like, rapes. Quite incredible. And the police are cracking down. What gets me sometimes, though, you know, when officers are dismissed for things like WhatsApp groups, these are things, in my view, should be like words of advice. The police are judged, some police officers are judged very harshly. There was a doctor recently who left an operation, left the patient there, had sex with a nurse, and came back. And he put that person's life at risk, and he wasn't struck off. And I just think it's unfair sometimes that police officers are judged like this. One thing I would take from the stats, though, is that 16% of those struck off are ethnic minority officers, and only 8% of police officers are ethnic minority. And it just strikes me that sometimes in their desperation, senior police officers recruit people because they look a certain way when they don't carry out proper vetting and the like. And really, we should be recruiting police officers by how good that person is, not what colour they are or anything else. Let's just have good people in. And those stats don't say that they're not doing that.
No. I mean, looking at the numbers coming out of each particular police department in various different parts of the country, it looks as though, and it may just be a numbers game, it may be because there's more people there, but Greater Manchester seems to have a bigger problem than most. 130 officers barred there in the last 5 years, compared to in most other areas, kind of, you know, much more below 50 in many cases, and certainly below 100 apart from the Metropolitan Police, where it's 502.
Yeah, I mean, the Met is the biggest by 30,000 officers, and Manchester is the second biggest police force in the country, so there's no surprise there. Right. And Manchester Police is led by a very good Chief Constable, Steve Watson, so no doubt they're cracking down. But there has been a massive problem, as you've known in the past, with vetting, not recruiting the right kind of officers. And this is going to happen. These things, if you don't vet people when they come in, this is the consequence. When I joined the police, I was serving in Northern Ireland. The sergeant used to come to your house. In my case, the RUC sergeant came to the barracks and saw me, but that face-to-face interview, they suss you out, see your family and your friends. And then all the interviews I did to join the police were face-to-face. We've had this situation where people are applying online and they're never seen by a person until they arrive at the training school. And it's not really a training school anymore, it's a university where you go home after 5 o'clock. So all these things lead to problems not being spotted and bad apples getting into the barrel.
Yeah. It is unfortunate, isn't it? And I mean, as far as the police's situation now with regard to these protests, I mean, let's talk about that a little bit. Shabana Mahmood in the papers this morning saying we've lost control of our borders. Only last week she was saying we're going to give the police special powers to crack down on these pro-Palestinian marches. But, you know, no sooner than a couple of days later, after she said that, there was another massive pro-Palestinian march on Saturday, at which the only person that I could see was arrested was a pro-Jewish protester who they said was breaching the peace. And the police officer in question, when he was asked about why he was doing it, he said, I'm just following orders.
Well, I mean, we've heard that phrase before, haven't we? You know, it's in Germany. So it's just terrible. I mean, they arrest firstly why that man was ever handcuffed. What threat was he? What had he done wrong? Quite incredible. I just can't understand that. But the other thing, of course, is that politicians always say we've got new powers. You can have as many powers as you want, but unless you've got enough officers to enforce them, you're not going to do anything with them. So let's look at these cases where the police have cracked down and they've arrested 500 people in one day. That is 500 sets of people who are on bail coming back to the police station, 500 sets of paperwork that got to be submitted, and it just wears the police down. So while they're dealing with that, they're not patrolling the streets, catching robbers, thieves, burglars, rapists, the things that the community would like them to do. And as I say, the politicians have always got a new act of parliament, a new law, but there's never anybody new to enforce it. And what the police need is numbers to deal with these things.
Yeah, exactly right. It's a shocking state of affairs. Mike, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed. Mike, retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector, of course. Morning, Mike, says Phil. Labour has lost control of our borders and lost control of inflation too. If I hear another Labour politician banging the drum about pay increases to suggest we're all doing better, I will smash my television. Pay increases mean nothing if food costs are shooting up exponentially. We need rid of this crap government. Well, the trouble is that the only people who have had their pay increased are people basically who work in the public sector and people on minimum wage. Now, you know, I'm sure it's very nice for them, but unfortunately, putting people's pay up in the public sector ends up costing everybody else money because it's taxpayers' money that funds that. And they have to take money from the centre of the exchequer to pay for that. It's not coming out of any commercial enterprise, right? Similarly, if you raise the minimum wage, what you're going to do is you're going to make it more expensive for employers to actually hire people and to pay people and to employ people. So they will inevitably lay people off, which is what they've done. 123,000 people have been laid off from their jobs since Labour got in. 123,000. And when you add up the numbers of people who have come to this country since Labour got in, which is somewhere up around about the 59,000 mark now, nearly 60,000. Look at that on the migrant tracker, 59,602. Add that up with 123, and what do you get? You know, you're looking at, you know, very nearly 160, well, no, you're looking at 180, getting close up to 190, nearly probably by the end of this year, 200,000 people here who are not working when they used to, right? That's the problem. These are people who are going to be on the public teat, if you like, making sure that we, the people who pay taxes, look after them all. That's an awful lot of people to be looking after in just 1 year. And that's not including all the other people who need looking after from previous years. Practically 200,000 more people need looking after and paying for that we didn't have this time last year. Shocking. Starmer so far, says Kieran in Tring. Free stuff from his friend Lord Ali. Amesbury's attacking a constituent. A Hague phone fraud. Sue Gray leaves. Tulip Sadiq corruption trial. Housing Minister resigns over dehousing her own tenants. Chagos sellout. Smashing no gangs. Hate marches flourishing. Lucy Connolly sentence. Economy wrecked. Pensioners poorer. Pensioners colder. Tax crippling. Recognising Palestine. Rain of stamp duty. Fake solicitor business secretary. Lammy just being Lammy. And net zero madness. Any others? Yeah, you've forgotten Lord Mandelson. You've forgotten Morgan McSweeney and the £740,000. You've also forgotten about all sorts of other scandals which have taken place over the course of the last year and a bit. And don't forget that new book, Fraud, is coming out soon, which is going to wreak even more havoc inside the hallowed halls of Downing Street and the Cabinet. Right? And you haven't even mentioned the China scandal, which is coming up next. We're going to talk to a senior analyst at the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China to find out just exactly what is going on with the Chinese embassy planning permission and also with the spy case, which was mysteriously dropped by the Crown Prosecution Service because they say the government didn't want to cooperate. This is Talk.
But it was kind of humiliating to be British yesterday, to see the way that he embarrassed himself, got embarrassed by the president, couldn't handle it. So we can laugh at this guy, and we saw him there. The Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. I'm so proud to say, Peter Mandelson has my full confidence.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mick in Wellington says this: mythomania can start with a simple daily lie. This is a new word we found, which could explain why Keir Starmer behaves the way he does. He suffers from mythomania, which is a psychological disorder, which means he can't stop telling lies. Not sometimes even to any benefit. The last time Starmer told the truth was when he said he would choose Davos over our Parliament, says Casey. I believe that he truly meant that. I also believe he was telling the truth when he said release the sausages. Maybe he was hungry. Yeah, I don't know. Very strange behaviour, though, from the Prime Minister of this country. One of the things that he came back to a problem about, of course, is the Chinese spy scandal, which has been roaming around now in Downing Street and in Parliament for about the best part of 2 weeks. And still, there isn't really any resolution to it. We still don't really know, because the government won't tell us precisely what it was that they did, which enabled the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, to drop the case against two men who were accused of spying, basically, inside Parliament. Christopher Cash and Christopher Berry, accused of passing sensitive intelligence from inside Parliament to the top of the Chinese Communist Party. They should have been prosecuted. They couldn't be prosecuted because the government and Downing Street specifically refused to give them information which would have characterised China as our enemy. Let's talk to Chung Ching Kwong now. He's senior analyst at Interparliamentary Alliance on China. Chung Ching, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you too.
Thanks very much for talking to us. This is a real problem which the government is trying to kind of push under the carpet, it seems to me. What's your organisation saying about it?
So the government's line has not been consistent from day one. It seems to me that they are running out of people to blame. So they first blame the CPS, they blame the last government, they blame the Deputy National Security Advisor, and now they're blaming journalists. Yeah. And their story just don't stand up. The CPS just issued another response yesterday saying that it's not us, it's the government who are refusing not to make certain evidence public to be in court. And they're blaming journalists for not doing their job well. And they're saying is just one single civil servant now. So none of this actually makes sense. Someone has to be lying. Yeah. And the question is who? And how does the government plan to say that we are actually telling the truth by not disclosing any of the information that should have been public by now?
Right. And I mean, how long can they hide behind all of these excuses? How long before somebody says, look, in Parliament, you have to come clean, whether it's in a closed session or whether it's before a committee, you have to tell us the information that you either withheld or that you could not supply, or for whatever reason you did supply but wasn't helpful?
They will lie until the very last minute that they cannot about this issue, I'd say. Right now, they're in a mix of different things. There's a Chinese embassy pending. There's this ongoing China scandal. And I think they will try to push it out. But I know that there is a closed-door inquiry that's going to happen very soon. And it will be unknown whether or not what kind of information will be made public and how accessible it will be to the people who are actually affected by the scandals, because they're sanctioned parliamentarians in the House of Lords and in the House of Commons. Will they be told, is there any information being passed on? Will the people affected by this case have information about what information about them have been passed on to the Politburo? There so far has been no actual timeline or anything like that. We've just been told there is a closed-door inquiry that's going to happen. we're going to share the information, we're going to share the information without any specific details.
Right. And they seem to think that, like with a lot of other stories that they deal with in the same way, that if they keep kind of filibustering and they keep just sort of denying and not cooperating, that it all goes away.
But sadly, they don't go away. Like, there have been a lot of criticism about how this government is handling China. And it's all coming around, in my opinion, that things just eventually will be disclosed and people will talk about it. And there's no point in running away from the issue. It's time to actually decide on how do we want to deal with China. We should deal with China as the way it is, not imagining it is better than what it is right now.
And do you think this could lead to the resignation or the firing of one, in some way, shape or form, of Jonathan Powell?
I don't know whether or not it will lead to someone resigning or sacking of certain officials, but I think there has to be accountability. If it is the case that there are people who made the decision of dropping this case, not because of legal reasons, but simply because we shouldn't upset China, or we don't want to risk forgoing trade with China, then someone should be held accountable for that. And that probably means resignation or sacking them.
Yeah, I think so. Well, we'll keep in touch. Thank you very much indeed. That's Chung-Ching Kwong, Senior Analyst at the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China. We've got time for a quick voice note from Steve.
Good morning. Goodness me. I'm almost 70. I've lived under Labour governments before. I'm really shocked at your surprise, Mike, that things are going down the tubes. They always have done under Labour. They're just useless. They can't add up 2 and 2. They really are the most useless government they always have been, and this lot are the worst I've ever known in 70 years on this earth. Great show as always.
Steve, thanks very much for your thoughts. Yeah, listen, I am shocked because of the speed at which they're taking us down the drain. That's the problem. Coming up, loads more after the news on Talk.
Your Majesty, Melania and I are deeply grateful to you and Queen Camilla for your extraordinary graciousness. And to William and Kate, thank you so much. It's been so great being with you today. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's a singular privilege to be the first American president welcomed here. The phrase special relationship, seen from American eyes, the word special does not begin to do it justice. We're joined by history and fate, by love and language. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be with you.
Security remains the cornerstone of this special relationship. We have the deepest, most advanced defense relationship in the world.
As I said last night, the bond between our countries is like no other anywhere in the world. The United States and the United Kingdom have done more good on this planet than any two nations in human history.
We are working together to end the humanitarian catastrophe in the Middle East.
The one that I thought would be easiest would be because of my relationship with President Putin, but he's let me down.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 3 minutes past 8, and it is, of course, Wednesday, the 15th of October. Welcome to the middle of the week, and I'm afraid I've got bad news for you. There's not much good going on out there on the front pages of the papers. We've got the Daily Telegraph, which is leading with a story about Shabana Mahmood. She's going to make a speech later on today in which she's going to admit that the UK has lost control of its borders. She's the Home Secretary, by the way. She warns failure on migration erodes trust, and she's insisting now on a global response. So once again, instead of doing something about the small boats, and we've seen, as you say, from the migrant tracker there, almost 60,000 people now having come over on small boats since Keir Starmer became the Prime Minister. I think the annual just 2025 figure is now up to 36,360. She's saying we've lost control of our borders. So what does she do? She has a meeting about it with a load of people from the Balkans, right? Because apparently she's going to say that 22,000 people came here via the Balkans, smuggled along routes through the Western Balkans in 2024 alone, while 35,500 migrants across the Channel in small boats. I mean, the problem is you can't have meetings to solve problems, right? You've got to solve the problems and then have a meeting to tell people how you did it. There's no point in sitting around having some sort of talking shop. Front page of the Daily Mail, Labour isn't working. Again, number of jobless hits a 4-year high. We spoke yesterday of how 123,000 people have gone off the payroll since the Labour government got in. That's 123,000 fewer people working than there were this time last year. We face the highest inflation in the G7, says the IMF. But the bad news for the IMF is that Rachel Reeves is going to see him today over in Washington, D.C. Also, says the Mail, growth in wages and living standards has stalled. Britain's economy faces a grim quadruple whammy, piling more pressure on Rachel Reeves just weeks before the budget. This is a stark report from the International Monetary Fund, warning that inflation in the UK will be the highest for any advanced economy this year, with Britain also facing the worst growth in living standards in the West. You know, what an achievement. They've managed to do this in about, 15 months? You know, July to October. August, September? Yeah, about 15 months they've done it in. They've made this country an absolute laughingstock. Keir Starmer has been laughed out of the Middle East. You know, there he was standing on the stage at Sharm el-Sheikh when he was completely and utterly humiliated by Donald Trump, who did it deliberately because he knew that he was going to get his own back on Keir Starmer, who has behaved abominably when it comes to the Middle East, not least because he recognised a Palestinian state where Gaza gunmen are now shooting people in the head while they're kneeling on the street in front of them, right? Because that's what Hamas do. He rewarded Hamas by recognising a Palestinian state when it wasn't one. And it almost derailed all of those peace talks which Donald Trump worked so hard to get working on. Front page of The Sun, tremendous today. And what a waste of money, they say. Basically, it turns out we've spent £260 million on 2 centres for deportation, right? There's a couple of hundred people in them. In addition to actually holding them there, we're giving them art classes, we're giving them games to play, and also they get a welfare buddy for emotional support. Marvellous, isn't it? Absolute joke this country has become. This one from David, who says, Mike, Starmer is sometimes described as deluded. I no longer think that he is deluded. I now believe that he is deliberate. Everything the Cabinet does is deliberate. Then it all makes sense. Collectively, they are a threat to the UK. We need a mechanism to ensure that this can never happen again. And according to many of you, we've been asking you when do you think the last time was that Keir Starmer told the truth. One here from somebody who says that the last time he told the truth was when he said that he preferred Davos to the UK. And yeah, I think so. Bill says the last time Keir Starmer told the truth was when he showed his true feelings towards Donald Trump on numerous occasions. We asked the question because I posed the question earlier today about whether this guy has some kind of psychological problem, and we've actually cracked it because it looks as though he suffers from something called mythomania. Which was discovered by our producer Damien behind the glass. He goes, it's a psychological condition apparently characterised by a compulsive and habitual tendency to lie, often with no clear benefit or motive. There you have it, in a nutshell. That's what's wrong with the Prime Minister. Apparently compulsive lying is a characteristic of it, a persistent and uncontrollable urge to lie, going beyond occasional fibbing or social lies, elaborate stories. Lying often involves creating intricate and dramatic, sometimes unbelievable tales about one's past achievements or experiences. Lack of a clear motive. Lies are frequently told without an apparent gain, such as avoiding punishment or achieving a specific goal. And difficulty distinguishing lies. Individuals may struggle to distinguish between truth and falsehood, and their stories can change over time. I mean, that is Keir Starmer in an absolute nutshell, isn't it? Let's ask Esther McVey, former Minister for Common Sense. Esther, very good morning to you.
To you, I think you are spot on. Mythomania, which says to me, if he is ill, then he's unfit for office, which means the doctors with the white coats need to go in and drag him out of number 10. It could be the only way we get him out of number 10. But now you've diagnosed him. Spot on, Mike. I'm standing full square behind you.
It's got to be done. Listen, if this was America, right, you'd have the medics would be going into the White House, going into the Oval Office, and actually physically examining the man to see whether he had this particular disorder. I mean, it certainly fits him like a glove, doesn't it?
Well, he's got a track record of, as you say, this mythomania. I mean, I called Starmer and Reeves a duo of duds. It is denial and sort of deluded. Yes. But I think your mythomania is even better. I mean, everything they've said they were going to do, everything they promised they were going to do, they haven't. What was this? We were going to have a better standard of living, said Starmer. Rachel Reeves, we're not going to tax working people. We're going to grow the economy. Yeah. They have done none of that. And it seems to me they are the only two people in the country who don't know they put the UK into a doom loop. Right. We are doing the absolute reverse. So I think that in itself should be enough for the doctors to go in to number 10 and remove them both.
Exactly right. I mean, only yesterday, Keir Starmer came back to Parliament, right, and he addressed them, and he said to you and to many others that we have played a massive role behind the scenes in getting the peace deal done in Gaza, which has been denied, of course, by the Americans. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, said that actually Britain and France's intervention was positively negative on the peace deal, and in fact Hamas walked away from the peace talks as soon as France recognised them as a state, because they said, oh, we're going to wait for our reward, We also had Mike Huckabee, the US ambassador to Israel, saying that Bridget Phillipson was deluded and delusional when she said that we'd played some kind of role. And here he is, right, talking, I know you've been tweeting about this, here he is a few months ago talking about doing an inquiry, this is after a U-turn that he made, an inquiry into the grooming gangs.
This inquiry, in direct answer to your question, must go where the evidence takes it, and I'll be absolutely clear about that. And if that's questions of ethnicity, that's questions of the role of public officials, if it's questions of assumptions that were made that shouldn't have been made, all of that needs to be uncovered. No stone will be left unturned here.
Yeah, well, no stone has actually been unturned at all. No stone's been turned, in fact, you might say, because the front page of The Guardian today, it says the National Grooming Gang inquiry is actually stalled. They haven't even appointed a chair for the panel, and they're finding it really difficult to get anybody to cooperate with them. And it's 4 months since he made that statement, and nothing's happened.
I mean, the man is an embarrassment. I mean, he's got the skin as thick as a rhino, hasn't he, to have the audacity to say how much of a role he played in the peace process. Embarrassing. And everybody knows. It's like he thinks we're all as dim as him and Rachel Reeves, and he can say whatever we want, and we're all going to swallow it. So he hasn't done this. He hasn't done the rape gang inquiry. Remember, he never wanted to do the rape gang inquiry. He was forced into it. So those sort of words that he had said there, but there was no action that follows it up. But he's always never there. He's like McCavity's cat, isn't he? He's not there. Whenever Mandelson, he didn't know, he hadn't seen all of the reports. He thought he did, but he hadn't. Lucy Connolly, he hadn't read all the information. The fact that everybody in the country knew this woman had been put behind bars for something she'd put up wrong on tweet, on a social media. She knew it, she'd apologise, but the length of the sentence was disproportionate. Everything about it was wrong, but he didn't know about that either. And this now is catching up with him, isn't it? He doesn't know the Chinese, he didn't know, or it was somebody else's problem. I would say, if you don't know what's going on, Starmer, then you're not the leader of this country. Yeah. It cannot be your excuse that you didn't see, you didn't know, you weren't there. It means you're not up to the job and you need to go. And I'm bored of these excuses now, as are the rest of the country. Yeah. Time to be shot of him.
Exactly right. And look at the state of the economy. We're watching on the front page of the Daily Mail here. The number of jobless hits a 4-year high. We learned yesterday that 123,000 people are now off the payroll of working in this country. That's 123,000 fewer people working and now having to be supported by the rest of us. We've got the highest inflation coming, according to the IMF, in the G7. And growth in wages and living standards is basically stalling. And we're getting absolutely nowhere. We're going absolutely nowhere.
Right, so there's this woman who says she's economist, Rachel from Accounts. She absolutely isn't. When she increased employees' national insurance contribution, basically a tax on job, I asked her on the floor of the House, you know, when you tax something, what do you expect to happen? If you tax jobs, you're expecting there's going to be less jobs. That's why people have always put tax on cigarettes, tax on drinking, because they want to see less of it. But she didn't understand that. She didn't understand that the basic steps she has taken have absolutely put our economy into a nosedive. Everything that she has done, she's crushed confidence with business. They're absolutely uncertain, don't know what's going on. These new workers' rights from day one, not only is it the cost, but they're also now don't want to employ people because they don't know what it means. This woman really doesn't have a clue, and we are all paying the price for it. Economists have said, tax people again too much, the Laffer curve. You'll grow your black economy, which is what she's doing, and you'll make sure that people won't employ people. There's just every simple basic step that she does not seem to know what she's doing. The worst thing is, because they have pushed us into a doom loop, they've now got less money. She's going to come back, which she promised she wouldn't, if you remember last budget, £70 billion, the biggest splurge ever, some of it in tax, 40 billion in tax and the rest in borrowing. She said she won't come back. She'd stabilise the economy. My God, she did the exact opposite, and she could be coming back for up to 50 billion at the end of November. I'm afraid she's pushing our economy into the red quicker than anybody could have imagined.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely hopeless and really, really disappointing for an awful lot of business owners, an awful lot of people who want to see their business growing, who want to employ more people. Really disappointing as well for young people coming out of college, coming out of school, who can't find any jobs in loads of parts of the country because there's nothing going on.
Yeah, and the young people have been the hardest hit. And for them, it does scar them for the rest of their life, for the rest of their working life, when you have a bad start like this. And they don't have any clue of what they're going to do either. I know when I was Minister of State for Employment and Secretary of State for Employment, we looked at how would we get people back into a work, what schemes could we do, what incentives could we do for businesses, how could we have it so that we build a relationship, see what extra education, maths, English, whatever it is they'd need, but put them together as a partnership, as a duo, and that rapidly increased youth employment to a point that we were getting 1,000 more people into jobs each and every day. Even if this Labour government looked at what IDS, Ian Duncan Smith, myself and Lord Freud did between 2010 and 2018, at least they'd have an inkling of what to do and they could start on the process, but they're doing the exact opposite.
Yeah. They really are. And meanwhile, let's talk about finally Shabana Mahmood. She's on the front page of the Telegraph today saying, we've lost control of our borders. Oh, really? Well, you're the bleeding Home Secretary. Do something about it. And then we learn from the front page of the Sun, we're spending 260 million quid on 2 centres for deportation at Gatwick Airport, which include giving migrants a welfare buddy in case they feel emotionally drained. And also they get taught how to paint if they want to do that. And they get given free games to play, and they get given all kinds of other perks of the job that they shouldn't be getting over and above what people in this country get. It's absolutely extraordinary, right? 260 million quid. They've got a gym there as well where they can work out, and they're also given a free international phone call, access to e-books, newspapers in different languages and religious texts. I mean, why?
You wouldn't want to come here if you got all that. I mean, half of us wouldn't mind now giving up our jobs to go and live there. I mean, she knows what is wrong. The pull factor is way too much. People are coming here for a better standard of living just to live in those centres. Yeah. So she needs to get rid of all of those pull factors, which we've said for ages. Like I said, we don't need another meeting about what we're going to do. You could just stop those pull factors straight away. And I don't like this vision now that she wants an international approach. Yes, you've got to do all those things, but that is because she doesn't want to deal with the problems at home. We know the Conservatives have said it, Reform has said it, you've got to come out of the ECHR, you've got to get rid of the Human Rights Act, you've got to renegotiate the Refugee Convention. She's got to take matters into her own hand and not keep saying, oh, Germany can prosecute smugglers. We'll do one in, one out with France. All of this is a nonsense. No. She needs to take matters into our own hand, but they don't want to do this because they are internationalists. They don't want to do this because they were the people with the sign saying refugees welcome here. They've always agreed in open borders, and I'm afraid it must be some painful shock for them to realise everything they've believed all their life is wrong.
Absolutely right. Esther, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Esther McVeigh, former Minister for Common Sense, of course, Tory MP. Let's have a voice note from Darren with the gloomiest voice note.
Sorry to be so sombre in the mornings, but I'm glad I've only got 10, maybe 15 years left on this. Well, you can't call it a country, can you? Hey? Now mind you lot keep up the good work.
Darren, that has to be the gloomiest voice note ever. Thank you very much indeed. But listen, if you have only got 10 or 15 years left, listen, at least you can listen to some fun and get some good cheer from this very radio station and TV channel, because here at Talk, we're almost full of the joys of spring. It may well be that we sound like we're criticising people and we're having a go, because we are. Because at the end of the day, you have to tell people what's actually going on out there. You have to tell the truth. Like, for example, the Post Office, the Royal Mail being fined 21 million today by Ofcom because they couldn't manage to deliver their targets in 2024 and 2025. I got this, though, from a postie who says, "Hi, Mike, great show. I'm a postie, and trust me, this is from Shah. We are trying, but if they can fine Royal Mail for not delivering, why can't they fine the government? They haven't delivered anything." Well, that's true. I think we should be fining the government. The trouble is they just pay out of our money, wouldn't they? What's happened to the Mandelson scandal, says Kieran. Don't tell Starmer's getting away with that too. How his party can stand by him is beyond treachery. Keep going. Well, that's a very good point. The Mandelson scandal hasn't gone away because it's still engulfs Morgan McSweeney. And Morgan McSweeney, I think, will be going away. And I think I'm predicting that he will go sometime around the budget on November the 26th, if not before. Andrew says, Trump is playing the long game with Starmer. He obviously can't stand him. He hasn't forgotten the words of the past, and slowly he's humiliating him at every opportunity. Death by 1,000 cuts. It is great to watch. It really is. And Trev from Boston says, well, the one and only time Keir Starmer told the truth was when he said his father was a toolmaker. Well, we've known that all along. Yeah, very true. Coming up next, we're going to be talking to Alp Mehmet and Ross Clark, who's written a column in The Sun about Ed Miliband and what the hell is going on with the net zero mania. This is Talk.
I think that you can't legislate against stupidity, can you? And I think that these marches, which have been an absolute abhorrence for the people of the capital city of London, should have been stopped at the outset. And they certainly should be stopped now that there's nothing left to protest over. As you said earlier, there's a whole shopping list of things that they want, but they've all been settled, at least for the moment. There is peace, there is a ceasefire, the prisoners have been released.
Yep.
And so what are they protesting about?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. We are here, of course, for the duration until 10 o'clock. It's 24 minutes past 8. It is the 15th of October. It is, of course, the middle of the week. We'll be talking to Ross Clark very shortly. He's written a column in The Sun in which, of course, he's addressing the idea that Labour have suddenly decided to pluck out of nowhere that the reason why we're in such terrible states economically and in every other way is, guess what? Because of Brexit. Nothing to do with Ed Miliband and his crazy net zero sort of conversion and his mad rush to putting everybody's energy bills up by a massive amount. Nothing to do, of course, with what Rachel Reeves has been doing to the economy by giving off huge fat pay rises for public sector workers, or hiking employers' national insurance contributions, or many of the other things that she's been doing to stifle growth and to increase the inflation rate in this country. But we'll come up to that in a minute. Morning, Mike, says Ian from Krakow. You've got 6 countries that border along Poland, yet they have no illegal immigrants. The UK is an island, and we have mass illegal immigrants. Keep up the good work. Yeah. And one here from Derek in Norfolk, which is quite interesting. The migrant who threatened Nigel Farage, who also got 8 months inside for entering the UK illegally, why aren't they all being charged with the same offence, says Derek in Norfolk? Well, that's a very good question. Nigel Farage, of course, was speaking about this yesterday. We'll bring you that in a little while. We'll tell you what he had to say about the man who threatened to kill him. He was down at Southwark Crown Court yesterday, being sentenced to, I think, 5 years in prison. Mike, the difference with this Labour government is in the past, Labour governments have inherited relatively strong economies which shielded the country from the impacts of socialism. This government didn't have a strong economy to inherit, so the impacts have been immediate. Socialism always destroys the economy. And that's from Tim in Southampton. Well, I think you'll probably find that Ross Clark rather agrees with you. As Margaret Thatcher used to say, and it's a big week for her, it's the 100th anniversary of her birth, the problem with socialism is you always run out of other people's money. Ross, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to see you. This seems to be now a little bit of a narrative that they're constructing over at Labour HQ, doesn't it? Because Wes Streeting the other day came out with something similar, saying that, you know, we're struggling to fix the economy because of Brexit. I mean, people voted to leave the European Union nearly 10 years ago.
Yes, exactly. I mean, Wes Streeting seems to be a bit the advance guard on this. The word is that Rachel Reeves will, during her budget speech, start trying to blame Nigel Farage and Brexit for having to put up our taxes. As you know, Nigel Farage is really the Chancellor. Rachel Reeves is just a front, and yeah, completely ridiculous. Yeah, the idea that Brexit has harmed the economy, you know, to believe that, you've really got to be incredibly blinkered and not sort of be in touch with what's happening the other side of the channel.
Right.
If Brexit had harmed our economy, I mean, Britain would be sort of going down the tube while the rest of the EU sort of sailed ahead without us. Whereas, you know, you look at economic growth since we voted to leave the EU, we're about the same as France. Not great economic growth. We've been sort of a bit pedestrian, our economy, but we've grown about the same level as France has. We've grown faster than Germany has. Germany is in the middle of a sort of rather sharp industrial decline. So neither of those countries, I think, have left the EU. So why should you blame Britain's sort of lousy economic performance on Brexit?
Right. Well, it's a very strange situation that we find ourselves in, isn't it? Let me play you this from Rachel Reeves, which she said this morning, because on the one hand, they're saying, oh, Brexit's to blame for the economy being a terrible place. And then here she talks about, you know, possibly being in a doom loop. And then in other public pronouncements, they're trying to make out that everything's fine. Have a look at this.
Our tax rises coming down the track.
Yeah, but I think that this government are making, in terms of the ambition of this government, it is big.
But you agreed, yes, there are tax rises coming down the track.
Well, I was really clear during the general election campaign, and we discussed this many times, that I would always make sure that the numbers add up.
Can you promise the British people you're not going to get stuck in a doom loop of having to go through this cycle every year of having to find more tax to fill the black hole?
Nobody wants that cycle to end more than I do, Sam. That's why that is why we're putting all the effort into growing our economy, because that in the end is what brings in the tax revenues to be able to afford to keep taxes low.
So she finishes up with having admitted that we are in some kind of doom loop, and she is going to raise taxes, by at the end saying, I'm going to create growth. Well, sorry, I mean, all of those things, same things can't be true.
No, and, you know, on another day, she would be boasting, oh, Britain's got the highest growth rate in the G7. Well, if Brexit's to blame for the economy, well, you know, how come we've got the highest growth rate in the G7? I mean, it doesn't make sense. And Keir Starmer, if you remember his conference speech a couple of weeks ago,
I'd rather not.
Was boasting of, probably not, but he was boasting of how the government had done a trade deal with India and it managed to get a sort of reasonably good deal with Trump and his tariffs. And, you know, of course, he didn't mention the one thing that should actually made these things possible, which is Brexit. You know, if we were still in the EU, we'd be, you know, we'd be thumped by the tariffs Trump imposed on the EU. We wouldn't have been able to do a trade deal with India, which the negotiations for which were begun by the previous Conservative government, by the way. And yet, you know, on another day, they're saying Brexit is to blame for everything. And it just doesn't sort of make sense, does it?
None of it makes sense, no. That was shortly before he sort of encouraged everybody to rise up and fight Nigel Farage, because he was the biggest threat to Britain since, you know, the Normans or something, you know. He's very carried away these days. And I mean, I've worked out, I don't know whether you heard any of the show earlier, what's wrong with him. And I don't know whether you've ever heard of this particular condition, but mythomania is something I'm thinking about writing about. We think that Keir Starmer may be suffering from it. It's a psychological condition characterised by a compulsive and habitual tendency to lie, often with no clear benefit or motive.
Yeah, so he's not the only politician to suffer from that, let's say.
No, it could be an epidemic. You know, maybe we should try and find a vaccine for it.
Yes, yeah, but let's wind back to the sort of day after the general election, and Keir Starmer was boasting, you know, growth was going to be the absolute priority of his government. And, you know, where are we? We were sort of, you know, we've sort of been bumping along the bottom of the growth has actually sort of, you know, declined. We had a sort of really rather promising situation when the last government left office. Growth had sort of perked up a bit. Employment was growing strongly. And now in the year since, the past year, we've lost 115,000 payrolled positions.
Yeah. I think it's 123 now, actually.
Yes, and I mean, there is a very good reason for that. Is that the national insurance hike, employers' national insurance hike last budget increased the costs for employers, particularly for those employing part-time staff, because she reduced that threshold for paying national insurance from £9,100 to £5,000, which brought a lot more part-time workers into the net. Employers, supermarkets and so on, warned her that this would cause jobs to be shed, and that's exactly what has happened in practice.
It absolutely has. Great column anyway, Ross. Listen, thank you very much indeed. Ross Clark, columnist at The Sun, on page 10 today. Brexit to blame for our sluggish economy, he asks. Isn't it more the fault of your policies, he says to Rachel Reeves, because G7 growth in 2025 has got the US at 2%, UK at 1.3%, France at 0.7%, Italy at 0.5%, Germany at 0.2%. So France, Italy and Germany have got a more sluggish economy than we have. Ours is pretty bad, but theirs is even worse. So if it wasn't for Brexit, ours would be even worse. Let's have a look at what is being said on the Sun Letters page.
Letters from the Sun, the page where you tell Britain what to think. For more, visit thesun.co.uk.
And an awful lot of it, of course, to do with Donald Trump and the Middle East. This one from Francis in Wigan, who says, love him or loathe him, you can't deny that Donald Trump gets things done. Thanks to the US president, it was great to see all the Israeli hostages held by Hamas finally freed and hugging their loved one. Watch out, Putin. You are next in Trump's eye line. Seeing Trump in action makes me lean towards voting for Nigel Farage in our country because I think the two men are cut from a similar cloth. Anne in Sheffield says, Donald Trump is a hero. Who else could have brokered a deal to get the release of the hostages back to Israel? Certainly not our flimsy Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and all the other wittering heads of state. Trump gets things done, and let's hope peace can be found throughout the Middle East. And one final one from Alex in Tyne Weir. It says, whatever his critics say, Donald Trump gets results, hence the emotional release of the 20 surviving Israeli hostages. Starmer, in comparison, was his usual feeble self, adding nothing to Trump's ambitious mission to bring peace. Yet, there he was, bold as brass, at the Gaza summit in Egypt. If he had even a little of Trump's political nous, Britain would not be in the mess that it is. I think that's a very true statement, very well said. Thank you very much indeed. Gurdeep says this, good morning, Mike. Labour keeps running this country on a foundation of lies and gaslighting. It's unbelievable how far they'll go to twist reality while people are struggling more every day. Something has to give. This government has lost all credibility after that humiliating appearance at the summit were an embarrassment on the world stage. Yet they still carry on as if nothing's wrong. Enough is enough. They need to go.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through till 10 o'clock. It's 8:36. It's the 15th of October. It's Wednesday. There's lots going on. We're talking about open borders. We're talking about closed economies. We're talking about migrant hotels and ridiculous amounts of money being spent on migrant detention centres. Plus, of course, Labour and the economy. Labour isn't working. The economy is going faster down the gurgler than you can say Jack Robinson. Number of jobless hits a 4-year high. 123,000 people fewer working now. highest inflation in the G7, according to the IMF, where Rachel Reeves is going later on today. And the growth in wages and living standards is stalling. This from Paul in Canterbury, just on the subject of the NHS, by the way. We haven't talked about the NHS for a while. Good morning, Mike. You can no longer call to book a doctor's appointment at my GP surgery. Pre-COVID, you could book one appointment and see a doctor. Job done. Now, you register and put on a waiting list to see a doctor on e-consultation. Then they put you on a second waiting list for a face-to-face appointment to see the GP. What a farce. 2 appointments, 2 doctors for a simple visit. Is this what Starmer meant by more appointments? 2-tier GP appointments now. Yeah, very possibly so. I mean, lots of people that I know have had at least 3 or 4 appointments made before they actually get to see anyone. Which would mean if you were doing that to everyone in the country, no wonder they can say they've got 4 million, 5 million, 8 million more appointments, because they have. But it doesn't mean it's improved the system. It actually means it's disimproved the system, because people are waiting longer to see a GP because they're having to jump through more hoops. Bonkers. Let's get a voice note from Carl on losing control of our borders.
Shabana Mahmood saying we've lost control of the borders. And then she's meeting with these people from the Balkans, talking about how many people have come through that area and they come from different countries. Hang on a minute. I thought these people were undocumented. They threw the passports away. They don't know where they've come from. Well, see, it can't be both ways. It's one or the other. They either know where they come from or they don't. So how can they then say, oh, they're coming through the Balkans? I thought they didn't know who these people were. It's just lie after lie after lie. They obviously can find out who these people are. They just can't be bothered sorting the problem out. Cheers, pal.
Very good point, Carl. Let's ask Alp Mehmet, chairman of Migration Watch. Alp, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Carl makes a good point there, doesn't he? I mean, we've got Shabana Mahmood on the front page of the Telegraph today saying that she's having a big meeting with people from the Balkan countries today in Downing Street. The Balkan interior ministers are all going to join her to try and see whether or not there's anything they can do to stop people moving through their countries. As Carl says, how do we know they're moving through those countries if we don't know who they are?
This is more delusional talk, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Our government haven't got a clue how to stop them. They've been time and time again saying they're going to do this and that, they're going to smash the gang, whatever. The only thing they're doing is smashing their credibility.
Yes.
Even looking at the Palestinians and what's been happening there, already we've sent a message that we're going to welcome however many it is. There are 2 million Gazans. There are 5.5 million Palestinians. And the message that's gone out to them is make your way here and we will make you comfortable and we will allow you to stay. That's the message that's gone out. And with regard to those who are coming in through the Balkans, let's not forget that they're actually having got into Europe through the Balkans. They're not making their way directly here. They're going through other EU countries in order to get here.
Right.
The fact is that we have no control. It's not a case of losing control. We haven't had control of either legal or illegal migration for a long time. And it's time that the government came to terms with this and took on board the fact that they've got to get serious about stemming the tide of immigration that is hitting us.
Yes, because I mean, back in 2018, when the boat crossings sort of started, I guess, there was a very small number at the beginning, wasn't there? And I guess what happened was that the people smugglers got ever more bold and decided this was an easy thing to do, and so they just started carting more and more people across the channel, and which they've been doing kind of in increasing numbers ever since.
Well, in 2018, when it all started, in January, there was something like 7 in one dinghy that made their way across. There were 299 in the whole of 2018, and it's been growing since. It's growing again this year. We're over 36,000 just across the channel. I'm afraid the only reason that it's happening is because it works.
Yeah.
If you get yourself here, you're going to get to stay. The Palestinians who came in up to the year to June 24, there were 38. The following year, in the year to June this year, there were 324. The year before, there were 327 who applied for asylum. Last year, or in the course of the past year, there were 141. I mean, all these people are succeeding simply by getting here and applying for asylum. 80% of those who apply for asylum from Palestine are being allowed asylum. But apart from that, even when they're refused, they're not being sent back. What I would say, Mike, is look at what happened after Afghanistan. For those who are saying now, well, we've got peace in the Middle East. Maybe, but it's going to be a hell of a long time before things get back to any sort of normality and have the conditions to persuade people not to leave.
Well, that's right.
It's not going to happen anytime soon, and I'm afraid they will make their way here because we will look after them and they will get to stay.
Of course. Well, I was reading a story just the other day, earlier this week, about a Palestinian woman who I think was in her mid to late 30s, who was being brought to Britain to study at Glasgow University for some, nebulous, ridiculous PhD that wouldn't be of any use to man or beast, and she was complaining because apparently she was supposed to be bringing her husband and 3 kids with her, but she was refused entry onto the bus that was leaving Palestine, and this was before the peace deal was even done, because they said there wasn't enough room for the husband and the 3 kids. But so obviously we are giving solace to these Palestinians, not only to them to come here and study, and maybe presumably pay for their tutelage and pay for their living, the cost of living and all of that, but they're allowed to bring their families with them. So that would be 4 or 5 people coming into a country that's already overburdened and already paying through the nose for millions and millions of people who are both homegrown and foreign. I mean, the story today, I think, says 1 in 6 people claiming universal credit are now migrants.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we keep saying what a huge cost this is. And not only is it costly, but what we're doing is we're going to take in any wretched individual, anyone in dire conditions, as they put it. We're going to say to them, you can come here, and the British taxpayer is going to pay for it all and look after you. That is wrong. Isn't it time that Shabana Mahmood, Sir Keir Starmer actually took heed and listened to what the British taxpayer is saying? They want this to stop, and they want it to stop in their name. What is happening at the moment is not something that the British taxpayers are prepared to pay for, to take in. There are 200 million displaced people around the world. As our laws are, and as our courts have now decided, every single one of them is potentially able to come here and claim asylum and be looked after. That is wrong.
Well, exactly right. And in the paper today is pictures of the bloke called Fayaz Khan, as he's known, who's the man that came over on a small boat, filmed himself coming on a small boat, and said on a video on TikTok that he was going to kill Nigel Farage, right? He's from Afghanistan. He was sentenced yesterday for 5 years. Let's have a look at what Nigel Farage had to say after his conviction.
This violent criminal, somebody with 17 convictions in Sweden, in 18 months' time, he will be in this country, living in a house of multiple occupancy or a hotel. He'll be free to walk the streets whilst his asylum claim is being judged. And the only reason we know about this guy is because somebody sent it to me on TikTok. And it makes me wonder, how many other Madapassers are there now in this country, or will there be as the boats continue to cross the channel?
And of course, one, he shouldn't surely be able to continue to claim asylum if he's been convicted for a violent offence which puts him in prison for 5 years. 2, he was apparently sentenced to 8 months in prison already for illegally entering the country. So how is he able to be sent to prison when nobody else is?
Well, what I'm more concerned about is that in 18 months' time, when he's freed and he's able to walk the streets and he applies for asylum, we're going to put him up because we can't allow him to become destitute.
Right.
We're going to give him £50 a week to await the outcome of his application, and then I wager that he will be allowed to stay because we won't be prepared to send him back to Afghanistan, and I'm sure that no one else will have him.
I know.
So this can't be serious. It really can't be serious.
It's a joke. It is absolutely a joke. Alp, very good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Alp Mehmet there, chairman of Migration Watch. Here's the thing. If you can be sent to jail for an 8-month sentence for entering the country illegally as a small boat migrant, how is it that nobody else who gets detained and is then deported is also sent to jail? How is that not happening? 0344 499 1000 is the number. This from Kevin in East Sussex. Mike, I just received a letter from the NHS cancelling my appointment. They said how sorry they were to cause any inconvenience. The next paragraph said, here is your new appointment, which was the same appointment they just cancelled. What did the person writing the letter think? Well, they obviously didn't think. I mean, God save us. Who knows? Coming up, we're going to tell you about a student who's been calling for the death of Israelis. All right? Guess what? He's a middle-class kid. Comes from Tunbridge Wells. Oxford PPE student, no less. 8:48.
Somebody with 17 convictions in Sweden. In 18 months' time, he will be in this country, living in a house of multiple occupancy or a hotel. He'll be free to walk the streets whilst his asylum claim is being judged. And the only reason we know about this guy is because somebody sent it to me on TikTok. And it makes me wonder, how many other Madapassers are there now in this country, or will there be as the boats continue to cross the channel?
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 8:52. A bit of breaking news for you, rather an unusual story this morning. At 7:10 this morning, a group of women made a citizen's arrest. The person that they arrested was a man by the name of Mark Thurston, who is CEO of Anglian Water. He was waiting to catch a train at Colston South Station in South London. He was standing on a packed platform of commuters. You just see the picture there. These women, who are all part of this organisation called Citizens Arrest, basically said that they went up to him, surrounded him, held hands so that he couldn't escape, and basically prevented him from leaving the scene, while one of the group read him the charges he is accused of. Right? According to these women, they're accusing him of up to 3 counts of public nuisance, focusing on environmental damage and illegal sewage spills, which pose a risk to the public's access to clean water, their failure to maintain equipment which leads to the spills, and mismanagement of funds following bill increases, and Thurston's bonus ban. These women call themselves a Citizens Arrest Network. Comes days after Anglian Water were given approval by the competition body to raise bills over the cap initially set by the soon-to-be defunct Ofwat, and an agreed increase of 19% on charges. I mean, blimey. Citizens Arrest, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, I suppose. They haven't caused him any harm. The police are apparently involved now, and presumably trying to free him from his unlawful imprisonment, which I suppose if you were a lawyer you might call it that. But, you know, this is what happens when water companies overstep the mark and make a big mess everywhere, and the law doesn't seem to do anything about it. So there we are. I suppose we should salute the old Citizens Arrest Network for doing something peaceful, but quite effective, possibly. Somebody who isn't peaceful, but is equally ineffective, is this kid. Have a look at this.
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From The Sun.
Oh, sorry, we'll come back to that. We're going to do 90 minutes in 90 seconds right here. Here's Martin Blackburn, Northwest sports reporter for The Sun. Martin, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
Yeah, very well indeed. We had Martin Lipton on yesterday. He predicted 3-0 to England against Latvia.
Yeah.
He was pretty much correct. A couple more goals came in. It was never going to be difficult for him, was it?
No, it was always going to be straightforward, Mike. You know, they won 5-0 in Serbia in the last round and in the last round of games, and ended up with the same result. So that's six games, 6 wins, and 18 goals scored and none conceded. So you know, you can only beat what's put in front of you. It was a very friendly-looking group, Mike, that they got put in, but as I say, they did what they had to do.
Yeah, I mean, you know, previous England teams have made heavier weather of groups before now, and so I guess you should say to Thomas Tuchel, he's doing all right, isn't he?
I think there were a few doubts in the early games, Mike, but yeah, the way they've sort of gone through the gears, if you like, in the recent matches is very encouraging. And of course, the interesting thing is they've done this without some of their sort of bigger names, if you like. Jude Bellingham, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Phil Foden. So he's got some big decisions to make between now and the summer. And some big players have a lot of work to do to get back in the squad.
Indeed. And what's the story with Jude Bellingham? I mean, you know, his parents are split up. He seems to be having trouble, you know, getting on with referees and getting on with managers. I mean, what's going on with him? Yeah,
I mean, he's also he went to the Club World Cup in the summer, Mike, and then and needed an operation soon after that. So he is still coming back to full fitness. But you know, Thomas Tuchel felt that he liked the makeup of the squad without him in the previous round in September. So he's going to have to do some hard work for Real Madrid over the next few months to get back in. I think he will. But a bit of work for him to do.
Yeah, absolutely right. Good stuff, Martin. Thanks for talking to us. Excellent stuff. Martin Blackburn, a Northwest sports reporter, England, qualifying for the World Cup earlier than anybody else. World Cup 2026. It's a new-look tournament. It's going to be taking place in America, in Mexico and Canada. So if you're planning on going, you better start saving your money up now, because it's going to cost a few quid. That was 90 minutes in 90 seconds.
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From The Sun.
Now we can have a look at this guy. His name's Samuel Williams, right? He was at a protest in London over the weekend. Have a look at this.
I don't want to yap for too long, but a chant that we've been workshopping in Oxford that maybe you guys want to join in. It goes, Gaza, Gaza, make us proud, put the Zios in the ground. Gaza, Gaza, make us proud. Put the Zions in the ground. Gaza, Gaza, make us proud. Put the Zions in the ground.
Now, it won't surprise you to know that he's a little middle-class tosspot. I don't know if I can say that, can I, at this time of the morning? He's from Tunbridge Wells, believe it or not, down in Kent. Lives in a lovely middle-class house with his parents. He was making his anti-Jewish chants while he was taking some time out from studying philosophy, politics and economics, the PPE at Balliol College in Oxford, which, of course, costs a pretty penny to go to. And apparently he's been busy workshopping in Oxford, that particular chant, which is clearly asking for people to kill Israelis and put them in the ground. What a ghastly little specimen he is. His name is Samuel Williams, and he's got pictures all over his Instagram of him in a keffiyeh scarf doing all sorts of things. In one disturbing image, he's wearing a khaki military jacket and smirking while he waves presumably a fake gun in the air. The image has been edited so the black scroll marks block the student's eyes. In another social media post captioned, "F your exams 2024, anti-colonial action," it shows him participating in yet another pro-Palestine protest. I think we should deport this guy to Palestine. You know, put him in with the Hamas ghastly characters and let them see how he gets on with them. Because they're currently on the streets of Gaza killing Palestinians. They're not actually killing Israelis. They're killing Palestinians who don't agree with them. Because that's the kind of people that he is championing and lionising. What a ghastly specimen. Samuel Williams is his name. And of course, many people have protested about Gaza without having to make death threats to people. And he's making death threats, and I think proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can indeed go to Oxford University and be a complete thicko. Because he's probably going to end up feeling the full force of the law. Surely Keir Starmer will come down on him like a ton of bricks, won't he? Because he's threatening people. You can't be inciting violence like that, can you? Surely he's got to go to prison for at least 31 months, off the top of my head, I would say. Don't you think? It's coming up to very nearly 9 o'clock. This from Steve. He says, Mike, I'm 68 and carried on working. I was on minimum wage at 4:30 a.m. start until 12:30. It cost me £1,500 a year in fuel to get to and from work, and the government were taking £5,000 a year in tax. So with that and my fuel, I was £7,500 out of pocket a year, says Steve from Sussex. It's insane, isn't it? And this one from Reg. Can you remember when Starmer first got in and he said it was going to be grown-up politics? It's more like they've given the keys to the sweet shop to the children. It really is ghastly, isn't it? Absolutely hopeless. Coming up in the new hour, Neil O'Brien will join us from College Green. This, of course, is Morning Glory. See you after the news.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 3 minutes past 9. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock when Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here. We've got a whole series of different newspaper headlines for you this morning. Labour isn't working again, is what it says on the front page of the Daily Mail. The number of jobless hits a 4-year high. We found out a few hours ago that Rachel Reeves is off to the IMF today to go and see what she can tell them about the future of the economy and what she's going to say in the budget. But unfortunately, she's going to be greeted by a lot of grey-faced, dour-looking men who are going to tell her that Britain faces the highest inflation in the G7. We're also going to be telling her that the number of jobless has hit a 4-year high, 123,000 fewer people working on the public payroll than there were back in the time when they took over just about 15 months ago. Also, growth in wages and living standards has stalled completely, going absolutely nowhere. A stark report from the IMF basically warned that inflation will be the highest of any advanced economy in the coming year. It's going to go up to something like 3.4%. And as I've said before, everybody knows that actual inflation, food inflation in particular, is an awful lot higher than that. People are paying almost double for some things that they paid for last year. Front page is also concerned about the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, saying the UK has lost control of its borders. Well, we could have told her that, but she's the Home Secretary. She's supposed to do something about it. She's warning that a failure on migration erodes the trust of the public. She says we need a global response. So she's meeting up in Downing Street today with a load of Balkan interior secretaries, interior ministers, to try and find out why it is that so many people come so far across Europe and through the Balkans to come to this country. Let's get a voice note from James.
Just stop the boats. Just turn them around. How many times are we going to keep having the same conversation, Mike? I mean, this woman, the new Home Secretary, Britain is in crisis now regarding the immigration. Yeah, no Sherlock. It's been going on for years, you stupid woman.
Yeah, well, there's no more harsh words said in jest there, but James is absolutely right. You've got to come up with a policy. You can't just keep having one meeting after another or having a summit. That's what Yvette Cooper did. She's having a summit today as well about Gaza. She's invited a load of leaders into Downing Street to talk about how the peace process is going to work. Well, it's not going very well at the moment because they've still got the Rafah crossing shut. Hamas are killing people in the streets, shooting people in the head who are kneeling down blindfolded in front of them because they don't agree with them. And they still haven't released the large bulk of the dead hostages' bodies, which the families in Israel want them to do, and which was a condition of the peace deal. So, you know, we remain to keep an eye on that. The migrant tracker shows there, look, 59,602 people have come to this country since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. That's nearly 60,000, 36,360 of whom have come just in this year alone. It is an absolute staggering number of people. And, of course, to put even more insult to injury, front page of The Sun today has got illegal migrant madness. What a waste of money. £260 million spent on 2 centres for deportation near Gatwick Airport, including the cost of teaching them how to draw, teaching them how to paint, and giving the migrants a welfare buddy for emotional support. I mean, at this rate, we're all going to need some bleeding emotional support. Absolutely ridiculous. Let's talk to Neil O'Brien, MP. He's down on College Green for us. He's the Shadow Policy Renewal Minister. Neil, very good morning to you.
Morning.
Good to speak to you. It's a sort of cataclysmic morning in terms of headlines for the Labour government this morning. Let's kick off with the economy first of all. She's off to see the IMF, Rachel Reeves is, but she's not going to get much joy out of that trip, is she?
No, she's not. I mean, the IMF have just said that we are going to have the highest inflation in the G7. We can see that unemployment is going up. And none of this stuff is an accident, right? Rachel Reeves said she spends £9.5 billion before the election. She ended up spending 10 times that after the election. So she's spent 10 times more than she said she would. As a result, she's raised taxes and she's increased borrowing. And the combination of higher spending, higher taxes and higher borrowing is causing the economy to stagnate, and that in turn leads to higher borrowing. So we end up in a vicious circle where borrowing goes up, she taxes even more, that makes borrowing go up, she taxes even more. And remember, after her last massive tax increasing budget, she said, I'm not coming back with any more tax rises, and here she is coming back with even more tax rises. And I just think until we do what the Conservatives say and actually start to control public spending and let people keep more of their own money, the economy will stagnate and we'll just go round and round in this vicious circle.
And it does seem as though she's not really listening. I mean, have a look at what she said earlier this morning. She sort of more or less admitted that they're in a kind of a doom loop.
Our tax rises coming down the track.
Yeah, but I think that this government are making... in terms of the ambition of this government, it is big.
But you agreed, yes, there are tax rises coming down the track.
Well, I was really clear during the general election campaign, and we discussed this many times, that I would always make sure that the numbers add up.
Can you promise the British people you're not going to get stuck in a doom loop of having to go through this cycle every year of having to find more tax to fill?
I think nobody wants that cycle to end more than I do, Sam. That's why that is why we're putting all the effort into growing our economy, because that in the end is what brings in the tax revenues to be able to afford to keep taxes low.
Yeah, I mean, so she's more or less admitted that they are in this cycle of doom and she can't really figure out how to get out of it.
Yeah, no, she admitted that there is this vicious cycle. But let's be clear about how it started. It started with her breaking her promises. She said she wouldn't increase taxes on working people. Then she did a massive tax increase that was specifically focused on low-income working people. She said she wouldn't then come back for more. Now here she is coming back for more. I mean, you just can't believe a single thing she is saying. I mean, she admits there is a problem, but as usual, I suspect they'll just try and blame everyone else. And they won't accept responsibility for the things that they have done.
Well, it's worse than that. They're now starting to blame Brexit, apparently, for this happening. They say that it's because of Brexit that we're in such a bad economic place, which can't be right because, of course, all of the indicators from Europe would suggest that their growth factors, their growth figures are even worse than ours.
No, that's right. And also, this is a forecast. The problem she's got is that the OBR are downgrading the forecast to what's going to happen in the future. It's not about things that happened 10 years ago. It's about the consequences of her own actions over the next 10 years. And so, look, I think they always just try and blame somewhere else. But it's clear to everybody they broke their promises and the consequences have been bad for the economy. And they know that they're in a bad cycle, but they don't know how to get out of it. We have a clear alternative, which is we cut spending by 47 billion. We let people keep more of their own money. We get the economy moving by cutting things like business rates for the high street, by cutting stamp duty. We've set out a really clear plan. I have no idea what the government's plan is, apart from to go round and round in a vicious circle, going down and down and down, with more and more people unemployed.
Yeah, that is the problem. There's a tweet that Keir Starmer's just put out this morning. We like to keep an eye on his tweets. This will make you cheer you up, I think. He says, new roads, railways, airports and reservoirs are coming to Britain, and they are coming soon. That's national renewal. It's news to me that we're getting new roads and railways and airports and reservoirs. Is it news to you?
It's news to me as well. I mean, the government said they were going to build all these houses, for example. They're obviously not going to hit their target. And in fact, house building in London has collapsed to unprecedented lows as the economy stagnates. I mean, I do think his tweets are increasingly just detached from reality. He just says these weird things that don't mean anything. I do feel like he does feel like a number 10 in a bit of a bunker, because every day someone leaves number 10, someone resigns or gets sacked, and the government is just, without any sense of direction, lurching from scandal to scandal. You had the corruption minister had to resign over links to corruption, the homelessness minister had to resign for making people homeless, the housing minister had to resign because she didn't pay the tax on her houses, our ambassador to Washington had to resign because he was in the middle of the biggest scandal in Washington. Now you have the national security advisor accused of undermining our national security. I mean, it's just a disaster zone, and they just lurch from one scandal to another with no plan for the economy, no plan for anything, to be honest with you. I mean, 1 year into a new government where they had this massive majority, and he's the most unpopular Prime Minister ever. I mean, it's incredible, really, what's happened.
It really is incredible how fast they have descended into such unpopular places. You know, they really are in a terrible place. But there's a new poll out today, published in the Daily Mail. I don't know if you've seen it, published by PLMR and Electoral Calculus, 7,449 British adults, taken from September the 10th to the 18th. Asking about how reform would do at the next election, and it says that reform would basically crush everybody. They've got a model that shows the Labour Party would only have 73 seats, but the Conservatives would end up with only 7.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously different polls say different things. So there have been some quite positive polls after our good conference last week. But let's be clear, I mean, we got rejected in the last general election, we got kicked out, but we are learning our lesson from that. And that's why, for example, in the last general election, loads of voters told me on the doorstep they were furious about the small boats and our failure to stop them. And they were right. In fact, I was more furious than them about our failure to stop them. And that's why we are now saying really clearly, firstly, we will leave the ECHR so we can end all these ridiculous court cases that stop dangerous people from being deported from this country. And we will start deporting 150,000 people a year and get all these dangerous people who should not be in our country out of our country. So we've now set out a clear plan for how things would be different in terms of stopping illegal immigration. Meanwhile, you've had the worst ever year for boat crossings so far. You've had the highest ever number of applications for asylum under Labour. And on the economy, again, people were not happy about the cost of living. They were not happy after our economy had been battered by the pandemic and by the war in Ukraine. People did feel bad. But we've learned our lesson from that. That's why we're saying this is how we'll cut wasteful spending, this is how we'll cut welfare spending, and this is how we'll give that money back to you. It's your money ultimately. We will let you keep more of your own money and to tackle the cost of living there. So yeah, we took a showing in the last election, quite rightly. The public were right, but we have listened to what they've said, and we are now really clear about how we do things differently. It's 4 years until the next election for us to set out our case and to make the arguments here. People are clearly angry with the government. It will take time for us to earn back the trust of the public by being clear about our plans and honest about the trade-offs. But that is what we're planning to do, and that you can't say fairer than that, really.
OK. Neil, thank you very much indeed. Neil O'Brien MP, Shadow Policy Renewal Minister, still hopeful that the Tories can come back from the brink and come back from the dead, if you like, because I wrote a piece yesterday suggesting that they're on life support now and somebody needs to save them before they diminish into a complete and utter oblivion. I don't think they're really quite serious about how bad the situation is for the Tories. I mean, the Labour government is unpopular, but the Tories, it would appear, are even more unpopular than the government are. Let's talk to Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor at The Sun. Trevor, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
There is a certain amount of delusion going on here, isn't there? The Labour government are deluded about their role in the world and how the economy is doing, and it seems the Tories are deluded about exactly what future they have.
Well, I think there are two questions here, and the first is that the Labour government is making blunder after blunder and proving themselves totally incompetent for the job they were elected to do. The other thing is that the Tories seem to have sunk so far below the horizon that whatever they do or say has no impact whatsoever. Nobody is listening. Nobody wants to listen. And I think that they have left it much too long since the last election and the election of Kemi Badenoch as leader to actually state their case and come out fighting. That silence has been a vacuum filled by Nigel Farage on both counts. And this latest poll that you mentioned is an absolute phenomenal boost for him and his party and his prospects of actually winning an outright and possibly a very large majority in the next general election.
No question at all. I mean, the figures are really quite staggering. But I mean, I talk, and as I say, I wrote a piece yesterday about how terrible the state of the current Tory party is and how deluded the ministers are, that they keep saying, well, that wasn't really my job when I was in the last government. That's not really my fault. You know, we're going to do all these things now that we said we would do in the last 14 years that we didn't do. But I mean, you know, this new poll, which was held, admittedly before Tory party conference, but their bump in the polls after that wasn't much. It was a couple of points. You know, they've got the Conservatives getting 7 seats, Labour 73, Lib Dems 42, SNP 41. I mean, the Conservatives literally collapsing.
Absolutely, and I can remember in the run-up to that last general election when people who I knew to be lifelong die-hard Conservative voters, and indeed some who were members of the Conservative Party and chairman of their local parties, were saying in direct terms, quite bluntly and repeating it, I will never vote Tory again.
Yeah.
And I think that has stuck. I don't think they've changed their minds, and the Tories haven't given them anything to bite on to come back and vote for. I think that the stamp duty thing was a very, very good idea, long overdue. It's a stupid policy, very bad for Britain and the economy. But has it made an impact? It doesn't seem as if it has at all.
No, it really doesn't. And meanwhile, we sort of stumble from one disaster to another. I mean, Neil O'Brien was right about that. You know, we're still waiting to find out exactly what happened over this China spice crisis. You know, it looks like the Crown Prosecution Service have very much accused the government of withholding information from them, of not cooperating with them, and therefore them having to drop a quite important prosecution against two British spies working inside the House of Commons for China. I mean, it seems extraordinary, and that's only one scandal of about 15 that are sort of currently ongoing.
Yes, Neil O'Brien gave you a very good shopping list of the others, but the spy scandal almost is dwarfed by those other individual indicators that basically the Tories lie, cheat, and are incompetent. So it's a deadly combination. And I think that the spy scandal has yet to run its course. When you get a serving director of public prosecutions basically accusing a government led by a former director of public prosecutions of deceit, which is basically what it boils down to, then it's a serious problem. And when that's in writing and in public and in the public domain, it isn't going to go away again.
No. It really isn't. And, I mean, that's before you look at the state of the economy. I mean, Rachel Reeves off to the IMF today in Washington, apparently, where she's going to be told by them that Britain is going to have the highest inflation rate in the G7 and that basically growth in wages and living standards has stalled. And it's all looking terribly bleak for the next 3 months, if not more.
Yes, and these are all the direct consequences of Labour's mismanagement, the capitulation to the trade unions for big pay demands, the increase in stamp duty, basically a tax on jobs which have disappeared like snow in the Sahara. And I think that all of these things are really beginning to bite with people. People aren't always obsessed with the economy, but when it lands on their doorsteps and they can't get jobs and their kids can't get jobs when they leave university, when businesses are closing, shops are shutting, restaurants are closing, then it's evidence on the high street and it's in their homes. And I think that this is something that the government is going to find extremely difficult, if not impossible, to overturn and overcome in time for the next general election. It can actually only get worse for them.
Yeah, I think so. And again, I mean, we've reached a point where, I mean, we've got a new Home Secretary. Yvette Cooper did a pretty useless job when she was doing it. We've now got Shabana Mahmood, who we were assured is the best person for the job. She will stop at nothing. She will leave no stone unturned. Everything's going to be amazing because she's so tough and nobody's going to mess with her. She's fine. She's been in the job, what, a month or so? And she's now finally thrown her hands up in the air and gone, we've lost control of our borders.
Yes, she's asking the Albanians and the people on the far east of the European Union to come to her rescue. Well, we're the last people that they're interested in. They're too busy fighting their own battles, or alternatively shipping out all the migrants that come into their domain and heading them in our direction. I mean, those pictures of people coming across in boats, which you're showing right now, are now ingrained in the imaginations and memories of the voting public.
Yeah.
All of them waving joyfully. Look at that lot. They're all young men of fighting age, as Nigel Farage keeps repeating. And that is intolerable, and it keeps happening.
Yeah.
It's been happening every day. 36,000 on their watch. That's a very, very large part of our community being duplicated here by people with nothing in common with our way of life. And in many cases, in deep opposition to our democratic way of life.
And certainly, you know, the points made by Nigel Farage kind of epitomised by the case yesterday at Southwark Crown Court of an illegal migrant who came to this country and basically threatened to kill Nigel Farage. He's done time in various other parts of Europe. He's got 17 crimes, I think, listed against his name in Germany, but he was allowed into this country because we didn't know he had those criminal convictions to his name. And suddenly, he's now jailed for 5 years because of threatening to kill a political leader in the UK. It's just astonishing.
It is astonishing. I mean, it's not as if he was hiding his light under a bushel, was he, with that Kalashnikov tattooed on his cheek.
No.
And quite belligerent videos that he's been distributing. That wasn't a joke. That wasn't someone just being a bit satirical. That was a threat. And I think that Nigel Farage, who's had his security team diminished by this government, is entitled to feel very, very alarmed and worried. And I know that he is about his own, not just his own personal safety, but that of his family and his working colleagues. And, we've seen enough of the actual delivery of violence by people like this to make it a very, as the Jewish community has just experienced in Manchester, we live in fear of such people, and we should not be expected to be exposed to such fear.
No, exactly right. Trevor, good to speak to you. Thank you very much indeed. Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor at The Sun there. We were talking as well about Keir Starmer's tweet. The new roads, he says, new roads, railways, airports and reservoirs are coming to Britain, and they're coming soon. That's national renewal. That's what it says. That's what his tweet says. Where's the new airport then? Any ideas? We put a new airport somewhere, I don't know, the Isle of Sheppey, Norfolk. Where? We got airports all over the place. Where are we building any more? Stuart says this, Nigel Farage is 100% correct. We have no idea just how many extremists and how many criminals have entered our country over the past few years. And for sure, it's going to end in disaster, and the Tories, Labour and Liberals are all to blame for it. Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. This from Massimo in Great Bowden. Love your show. I tune in every morning without fail. 8 years ago, I was operated on by the NHS. The surgeon who operated on me severed nerves in my spine, and that has left me with paralysis in my right leg, wheelchair bound at the age of 43. I require constant hospital appointments. I can tell you categorically, each department has cancelled and rebooked each and every appointment I've had for the past few years, on average 4 or 5 times, with some even discharging me by mistake. I've lost my career, my house, my independence. The NHS has ruined my life. Goodness me. Massimo, I'm sorry to hear that. That's awful. What a terrible story. So many people have got so many terrible stories to tell about the NHS because it simply is not fit for purpose. Cliff in Berkshire says this, great show as always. When you're in debt to someone, you give them power over you. I suspect the UK are in so much debt to China that China have a great deal of power over us. Yeah, I'm afraid that's probably true. Coming up, we're going to speak to Stephen Barrett, lawyer and writer, because there's a story about the ECHR, because we're being warned by meddling Europeans, it has to be said, that basically we may be in breach of the ECHR in the way that we treat trans people. Well, I'm not having that. And also, Henry Bolton is going to be coming next. Let's get a voice note from Tracy.
Morning, Mike. I know we all keep saying that Starmer's a terrible PM and that he's doing a really bad job and he doesn't know what he's doing. My worry is I think he knows exactly what he's doing. I think this is all part of his plan to let the immigrants in, to push his ID agenda. I think it's all been part of the plan. Him in cahoots with Tony Blair. He's not patriotic. He doesn't like Britain. And I think he's just hoping that their plan works.
Yeah, well, you could be right, Tracy. We've discovered, though, that you may be suffering from a psychological condition, which is called mythomania, right? And apparently the characteristics of mythomania are that you are compulsive and habitual tendency to lie, often with no clear benefit or motive. A persistent and uncontrollable urge to lie you can have, going beyond occasional fibbing or social lies. That's called compulsive lying. You tell elaborate stories. Lying often involves creating intricate and dramatic, sometimes unbelievable tales about one's past achievements or experiences. Like, my father was a toolmaker, that kind of thing. A lack of a clear motive. Lies are frequently told without an apparent gain, such as avoiding punishment or achieving a specific goal. Like, for example, saying we had a lot to do with the peace deal made in the Middle East. We played a key part, in fact. What about difficulty distinguishing lies? Individuals may struggle to distinguish between truth and falsehood, and their stories can change over time. Well, that would be like when, for example, he said that he thought that he would certainly and under no circumstances ever welcome Donald Trump to dinner. And now he wants to be his best mate. You know, and of course, he never said that he was a friend of Jeremy Corbyn's, except for when he said he was a friend of Jeremy Corbyn's. Stories can change over time. Mythomania. That's what he's got. I'm sure of it. Absolutely sure. 26 minutes past 9.
vocabulary and word choice. Sarah Potion.
okay.
She is very good, blank, playing the piano. Do you think it should be in playing the piano, on playing the piano, or at playing the piano? She'll start for 10, no conferring. Sarah Potion?
Do you actually believe this nonsense?
This is true.
That's not really
She's very good in playing the piano. What do you think the answer is? In, on, or at?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:30 with you until 10 o'clock, of course. Keir Starmer says we're building new roads, railways, airports and reservoirs. He says they're all coming to Britain and they are coming soon. That's national renewal, he says. That's one of his tweets this morning. His first tweet, first lie of the day, as I always call it. Anybody can tell me where the new airport's going to be? I'm just wondering. Railways? Any new railways? Where are they going to be? Is he talking about HS2, the one that's not going anywhere, apart from where it's already going? Is that the one, maybe? Roads? New roads? Any reservoirs? Anybody? I don't know. Maybe I'm just missing the point here, or maybe it's just more of his mythomania. He's telling a load more lies, He's making it up as he goes along. Sam says this: I think on safety and security grounds we should assume that all persons entering illegally into the UK are criminals and should treat them as such. How many more women and girls have to be attacked or killed by these illegals before something is done? Even one is too many. I take your point. Very, very true. Let's talk to Henry Bolton, OBE, International Border Control expert. Big couple of stories today. Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, admitting that basically we've lost control of our borders. So what's she going to do about it? Instead of taking control back, she's going to tell other people to get control of their borders, i.e. Countries in the Balkans, where apparently we're worried too many people are coming through to get to France, to get to here. Surely it'd be simpler to just close our own borders, wouldn't it? Henry, over to you. Good morning.
Morning, Mike. Yes, we certainly need to secure our own borders, not just against illegal immigration, but narcotics, firearms, and a whole load of other things that are coming across our borders that shouldn't be. Our borders are porous, to say the least, badly managed, badly legislated. The organisations responsible for doing it are poorly structured and resourced. But what the Home Secretary is doing actually is also valid if there's practical, realistic follow-up. And I say that because I've been saying now for the last 20 years that the primary threat in terms of illegal immigration and human trafficking to Europe and the United Kingdom, the sustained threat, comes not across the Mediterranean, but through the southern Balkan region. I know that because I used to work that region. I headed up the UK's intelligence and operational response to that. I was in the region. I was working with the intelligence agencies and law enforcement in the region and ministers in fact, the predecessors of the people that the Home Secretary is hosting today.
Yes, so I mean, we know that people come through a variety of ways, don't we? I mean, some people come in through Spain, some people come in through, from North Africa into Italy, into Greece. Some people come in, as you say, through Serbia, across from sort of Asian countries like Afghanistan and Syria. So, I mean, there's a variety of ways they come in, isn't there?
There are, absolutely there are, and it shifts and it changes depending on what's happening in the region. We saw in 2014 with the trouble in Libya, we saw a mass influx coming across through Libya that wasn't able to before that across the Mediterranean. So there are all sorts of things that world events that shape these things. So it sort of ebbs and flows. Up until the war in Ukraine, there was a great deal of Afghan and Central Asian migration to Europe through what was then the Russian Federation and then into Ukraine. Well, that stopped because of the war. But actually, using the analogy of that war, look, Ukraine is trying to hit, this is an analogy to illustrate what I'm talking about here. Ukraine is trying to hit the Russian strategic supply lines, its logistics, deep into Russia by striking their oil refineries, their railways, their bridges and so on. The Russians are trying to do likewise to the Ukrainians. And the reason is because that's part of the flow system. And if you're not doing that, then all you're doing is you're holding a thin red line at the border. So everything that you project forward to disrupt this flow is, if you like, a filter that reduces the pressure on your border agencies actually physically on your border. So it's all part and parcel of the whole thing. And the problem is that successive governments, have absolutely failed to apply that strategic approach that actually did exist. The UK did have such an approach in the early 2000s, highly effective. Tony Blair pulled all the funding on it. So, there we go. But and it's never been rebuilt. And a lot of that experience, knowledge and the contacts have been lost. They need to be rebuilt. But essentially, that's part and parcel of the picture. All we get at the moment are knee-jerk reactions. So the words are good from the Home Secretary on this to her Balkan counterparts. But as you quite rightly said in your lead, then they are... what is in it for them? And what was in it for them when we did it before was that we were providing immense UK intelligence support to the whole effort. And we had all of the intelligence agencies, government departments, all working together to support what people like me were doing on the ground with those ministries and intelligence agencies out there. That stopped. It's absolutely all of that infrastructure, all of that architecture has been dismantled. Doesn't exist.
And also the numbers now are so much bigger, aren't they? I mean, I know when you were there, the numbers were probably quite big, but they're now huge. I mean, we're now talking, practically 60,000 people have come since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister back in July of last year. We're getting up to 40,000 practically who have come just since the beginning of this year alone. The numbers are increasing, they're not going down.
And they will continue to increase, Mike, because we have not put anything in place to, it's an open door. And the more of these people who understand that door is pretty much open, the more will attempt to come through it. And the more we make the United Kingdom an attractive place, and we are, I mean, we're more attractive to these people than just about anywhere in mainland Europe. Who, they're all ahead of the game in terms of trying to make the environment there a less welcoming, more hostile place for people, which is another reason numbers increase, because they don't stop in Europe. More of them filter through, a higher proportion of those entering Europe filter through to the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Henry, got to run. Thank you very much indeed. Henry Bolton, OBE, International Border Control Expert. Of course, when they get here, some of them get detained. Not very many of them, by the way. A couple of hundred out of a couple of thousand possibly get detained. And it turns out, according to The Sun this morning, we're spending £260 million on a couple of deportation centres around Gatwick Airport, where basically The Sun have discovered migrants get a welfare buddy for emotional support. They get art classes, they get free use of gyms, they get puzzle rooms, they get free board games, they get English lessons as well, and they're also allowed to make a phone call home. Well, I thought they were fleeing home. So who are they calling? If you're fleeing a country, you don't normally call them back to go, "Hi, how are you doing? I've just left and I've come to Britain, but they're going to deport me back. I'll see you at the airport." The new one they're building. Keir Starmer's building a new airport, didn't you know? Haven't you heard? 36,000 migrants have arrived in the UK so far this year on small boats. Slightly more than that, right? They've detained a couple of hundred of them. So far, I think 26 have been sent back to France. Amazing, isn't it? Let's get a voice note from Adrian.
Hi, Mike. It's Adrian from East Sussex. You're posing a question, when did Starmer last tell the truth? Well, I don't think he does tell the truth at all, really. He's a nasty, nasty little man. And the person who said there needs to be a mechanism to stop this ever happening again is dead right, and there is one. It's why we pay for this royal family, this highly expensive royal family. Now, you may not want to use this comment, and I'd rather hope that Talk Radio has the balls to do it, but the King is sitting there and he has the power to dissolve Parliament, but he won't.
Well, he doesn't really, because he never would do that, and that hasn't really happened for a very, very long time. And I don't think it's ever really happened, actually, Adrian. But listen, you're perfectly entitled to your view about the royal family, but the royal family wastes no money at all. I'll tell you who wastes the money in this country. It's the bleeding government. The government are wasting money, billions and billions of pounds of it, part of it just to pay back the debt they've already got into with China. Yeah, the royal family actually doesn't cost this country very much money at all. Here's one from Michael in Birchington in Kent. A new airport is arising from the former RAF Manston airfield, but by private funding. Perhaps Starmer is counting this in his mythology. I know, maybe. Brian in Liverpool says, Stalin having a major mythomaniac attack today. New roads, railways, airports with a load of Balkans. And then one from Value, who says, the only new airport on our radar is the one being built in Pakistan that certain of our MPs are looking to fund. Yeah, I remember that. All those MPs in the Midlands, they want to build an airport in Pakistan. Maybe that's what he's talking about. A couple of reservoirs in the Hindu Kush, perhaps? Why not? 9:39.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. 9:42 is the time. I'm indebted to Barnack, who sent me this. Renewable energy providing just 14.9% of our energy at 9:30 this morning, so 12 minutes ago. I'm afraid it must be either too windy or not windy enough. It's not doing very well, is it? 14.9% renewables, solar 1.24 gigawatts, wind 3.29 gigawatts, hydroelectric 0.62. Yeah, it's a tiny, tiny portion, I'm afraid. Not going too well, that, is it? Where's Dale Vinson, or even Ed Miliband? Let's get a voice note from Sharon.
Morning, Mike. Sharon from Yorkshire. Just back from Krakow in Poland. Not a migrant to be seen. Beautiful country. But not a migrant in sight in Poland. They're not having any of this crap that we are dealing with in England. No face coverings, no hijabs, no nothing. People just going on with their lives in a beautiful country. Have a good day, Mike. Good show.
Makes you think, doesn't it, Sharon? Yeah. I mean, they've seemingly managed to keep Poland from having all these migrants going into it just because they made policy that said, we're not going to let any in. No asylum seekers, forget about it. We're not accepting any. So they don't go there. Simple. We could do that, couldn't we? I don't know. Let's talk to Stephen Barrett, lawyer and writer, of course, of some renown. Stephen, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good to see you. We seek your counsel this morning, Stephen, on a story on the front page of the Times. The Home Secretary apparently has accused the human rights watchdog in Europe of undermining the case for Britain to remain a member of the European Convention on Human Rights. Apparently, they've been critical of our stance on Palestinian protests and trans rights.
Yes, well, I mean, I agree with the Home Secretary. So, that's one for the Labour government.
Yeah.
She's entirely right. They are mouthing off on political issues. Human rights was always really politics and not law.
Yeah.
But if you think back to because law is the process of consistently applying rules. So the laws that I practiced in are established over hundreds of years. They're built on rules applied after rule applied after rule applied after rule applied. When human rights came in, it basically reset the clock, and they get to start from the beginning. So I could have at that point said, hang on a second, I think they're only doing this so that they can do politics. And they would have immediately denied it and said, no, we're definitely not doing politics. And as human rights has gone on for the sort of last 20, 25 years, it's become increasingly, and it's not as old as the convention, and they don't have the case law basis that they often claim. They claim that they're a lot older than they are, which is what new religions tend to do, Mike, just by the way. But now it's becoming increasingly obvious not only that they're doing politics and pretending it's law, but they're actually doing really unpopular politics, because they've delved in, and that's why Shabana Mahmood is right. They've delved headfirst into a man can be a woman. Now, we've just torn ourselves apart over a number of years, and in order to finally get to the place where the Supreme Court says, no, a man is a man and a woman is a woman, deal with reality, human beings, and immediately they try and undermine that. It's not just politics that they're doing bad politics. It's a form of deranged Marxism. And what was the other one? That it's not just the trans rights, but
it's Palestinian protests as well. Presumably,
oh right.
Presumably we're somehow invading people's human rights by allowing them to protest.
I can't imagine a less popular cause in Britain today. If you want to do politics, do not support the pro-Palestinian protesters.
Right.
The country is fed up to the back teeth of them. They've terrorised the Jewish community. They've terrorised the rest of us. They've made a horrible mess of the place. And let's be honest, British people, we don't like this. We don't like shouting. We don't like noise. We don't like litter. We don't like low-level criminality. We don't like black masked thugs. We don't like these people. So to politically support them, the ECHR is not only doing politics, but it's doing politics really badly. And it's about time. We just got rid of the whole lot of it.
Exactly
we don't
right.
need them.
But perhaps, on that point, they're perhaps playing, as she says, into our hands, because at the end of the day, it makes it a lot easier to get rid of an organisation or to pay less attention to it if it starts talking absolute and utter cobblers.
Well, good. I mean, good. And maybe Britain will wake up, and maybe we'll finally realise that we're better off as a democracy with all of us involved and all of us deciding how our country's run, and not run by an office block in Strasbourg full of foreign legal academics who don't even visit the country. I mean, how on earth they're supposed to run us if they don't even visit?
Right.
They're not they're not qualified to practice law here. I mean, the whole thing is a complete sham. Nobody would design this with a good intention.
No.
It's just a nice sounding, really stupid idea.
And from my current understanding, it's not a binding, legal sort of step, is it? I mean, if you get to the Supreme Court here and you decide that you don't like what the Supreme Court have said, you can't appeal particularly, can you, to the European Court of Human Rights? But they can make a judgment on something which may or may not be taken seriously by the British court system.
It's just a mess, Mike. It's an absolute mess. So not only does it do politics, not only does it do bad politics against the wishes of the majority of this country, it does law really badly, and it just makes a total hash of everything. Do you remember when it blocked the Rwanda deportation overnight? I mean, I always remember that because I was coming on a talk at like 6 a.m. to deal with it. So they literally did it while I was asleep. That's a nonsense power that they never had, and they've just given to themselves. This office block in Strasbourg is out of control and doesn't have the slightest clue what it's doing. It's doing deeply unpopular politics, and that is the time that we really should just wake up, thank it kindly for its service, and tell it to kindly trot on.
Yes. Because I don't think we'd miss it. I don't think anyone would mourn its passing whatsoever. I've got another quick question for you, though, in your with your legal hat on. There was an odd story this morning that came across our desk where a number of women made a citizen's arrest at a railway station in South London today. They call themselves a Citizens Arrest Network, and they arrested a man by the name of Mark Thurston, who happens to be CEO of Anglian Water. They surrounded him, you can see the picture there, joined hands, linked arms, and basically wouldn't let him leave while they read him a series of accusations, which included 3 counts of public nuisance, focusing on environmental damage and illegal sewage spills. They said he poses a risk to the public's access to clean water. He said the company had failed to maintain equipment which leads to the spills, mismanagement of funds, and his bonus as well. I don't know what the legality is of something like this, but it doesn't seem to be something that should be allowed to be done, does it?
Well, citizen's arrest is one of those important constitutional powers that you keep because you don't want the state to be completely in control of anything. You don't want, so another similar power is something like a private prosecution.
Right.
You don't want the state to be solely in charge of whether or not somebody is prosecuted, because you get issues like the China alleged spy case, where the state can misuse its power, or at least be perceived to misuse its power. So you do want to sort of keep these things. They're doing it in a very civilized way, so they're not attacking him and hurting him, which is good. That you should always use the minimum of force in these circumstances. I hope that they called the police as soon as possible. I hope that they investigated these offences and that they've got evidence, and that the offence meets the threshold. There's a threshold of when you can't just do this willy-nilly all the time. But, you know, if all of those are met, then this is part of our democracy and part of the way that we collaborate in our country. We are not passive participants in our country. We are active members. The state is not mother, the state is not father. It doesn't do everything for us. We do actually run ourselves. So I have some sympathy for this. I know that last week they did this in 5 offices of water companies. They're very upset with water companies because water companies is just another example of where the regulatory model, this patronising Blairite idea that an independent regulator will fix everything and do everything for you. You won't need to participate in your country, that the magic fairies will do all the work, and it's completely failed. Right.
But is there any kind of threshold for what offences you can make a citizen's arrest for? Because I just worry that if people see this, they'll go, oh, I know. And some of these pro-Palestinian lot will be sort of going around making citizen's arrests of people like the Israeli ambassador or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yes, there are. And there's no basis in law for anybody to arrest the Israeli ambassador. Let's get that absolutely clear. And the threshold is that these have to be serious offences, what's called indictable offences. I'm not aware of what offences they've alleged. So all I can say is that I hope that they meet the relevant test. If they don't meet the relevant test, then law comes around to bite you on the bottom, and they will have committed offences themselves.
Right.
So that's how we balance this out.
That's the safeguard, exactly. Yeah. One final one for you. The TikToker Fayaz Khan, who was sentenced yesterday to 5 years in prison for threatening to kill Nigel Farage. We learned today that he was also sentenced for 8 months in prison for coming into this country illegally. And we were wondering, well, if they can arrest him for that, why can't they arrest everybody for that?
They can arrest everybody for that. It is a crime.
They just don't.
They just don't, and this is part of law falling apart, really, that they won't do that, and they've just made a mockery of themselves by punishing him, because then now it's obvious that this is just arbitrary justice. All of these boat migrants are criminals, and yet we treat them with 4-star hotels, all the stuff you were detailing before about the treatment in alleged detention centres, where they're basically spoilt like children. We are encouraging these boat migrants. Let's admit this. And they are dangerous. He's got an AK-47 tattooed on his face and on his arm. That, to be honest, that should be enough for anybody with common sense. Yeah, you would think.
Yeah.
But we need to return to common sense, not believing that the authorities know what on earth they're doing, because they largely don't, and taking back control of our country. And that's, people like him just need to be back in Afghanistan. Thank you very much. Bye.
Yeah, absolutely right. Stephen, great to talk to you again, as ever. A pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. Stephen Barrett, lawyer and writer, setting a few things straight there for us all. Bit of breaking news. Israel's military has said a 4th body handed over by Hamas last night does not match any of the hostages. So it's anybody's guess, effectively, who that is. I'm not sure exactly how many bodies have now been returned. I think it was 8 at the last count. So one of those, it would appear, is not one of the hostages. So There'll have to be an investigation done into that. The new airport, says Kev the Red, is probably that one in Pakistan, in Mirpur, that the MPs asked for. The railway is probably a short reopened line in the South Birmingham suburb, at least 4 miles long. The roads could be a pothole in Sussex. No idea on the reservoir as yet. I'll keep my eyes peeled. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, a bit more breaking news for you. Tube drivers apparently are going to be getting an £80,000 salary as Transport for London offers enhanced 3-year pay deals to stop them from going on strike. So you get 80 grand now to drive a tube train. Blimey. This is Talk.
Let's listen to Nigel straight after the case. This is what he had to say.
This violent criminal, somebody with 17 convictions in Sweden, in 18 months' time, he will be in this country, living in a house of multiple occupancy or a hotel. He'll be free to walk the streets whilst his asylum claim is being judged.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:57. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here very shortly to take over into the 1 o'clock hour. And then, of course, Ian Collins, followed by Jeremy Kyle on Drive, and then Kevin O'Sullivan with the political asylum. Let's get a voice note from Matt.
Morning, Mike. Matt here from Swindon. That Samuel's parents must be so proud of him. I mean, if that was my lad, I would knock his block off. What a foul mouth, as you said, pot. Have a great day.
Yeah, absolutely. Samuel Williams, yes, studying at Balliol, Oxford. You can imagine him on University Challenge, he's just shouting, asking for people to be buried in the ground. What a complete plank. Also, a couple of other things to say for you. On the NHS, says somebody doesn't give a no. Laney in Essex, sorry. My dad went into hospital to have an operation on his gallbladder. They nicked his bowel with a scalpel and failed to notice. He died a few days later of sepsis, aged just 63. He was my whole world. That's awful, isn't it? And on Starmer's tweet about reservoirs and roads and railways and airports, Robin Lincolnshire says, Starmer's such an incredible joke. New roads, railways, reservoirs, etc. They can't even get Doncaster Robin Hood Airport reopened when it's already there, ready to go. Unbelievable. You've seen this start. Sorry, Julie Hartley-Brewer. Good morning. Starmer's put out some tweets saying we're building roads, reservoirs, airports.
I don't know why he even bothers putting out. He also made a statement yesterday saying that recognising a Palestinian state helped the peace process. When the people involved in the peace process said, no, that's literally not true.
Well, do you know what we've worked...
The man just lies for a living.
Well, we've actually found out what's wrong with him, right? We've discovered it this morning, and it's a clinical problem. It's called mythomania, right? Which is a psychological condition characterised by a compulsive and habitual tendency to lie, often with no clear benefit or motive.
Here's my thing. Do you think he knows he's lying?
He must do.
That's always my thought about it.
He must.
Does he, or is he just tells lies to himself all the time, so he doesn't realise?
He's